Hello, and welcome to the OMO Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Dunigan.
And boy, it's at the end of the year. Well, I guess the beginning of the new year now, but we're wrapping up our 2024 list of the top 10 films that we've seen throughout that whole year. And like the last few previous years, it's one of those ones where each year gets a little bit thinner and thinner, I feel like, with movie choices and so on. It's not like, there used to be some times where it felt like you could have a top 15 and it didn't feel like it was good enough. You felt like you were literally leaving a bunch of great films on the table, and I feel like in the last couple of years, we've had lists where you kind of go, this can it works here, it fits, it was good, but if it wasn't this position, it could be that position. It doesn't matter,
Well, here's the thing. To make, I'm kind of wishy-washy on my list to the extent of, I'm not too precious about, well, this one has to be 7, this one has to be 5, this one has to be whatever, I'm kind of more of there's a lot of movies I liked, but I was kind of even on a lot of my movies. There's even probably 5 more movies that probably could have been interchanged and thrown on this list, but at the same time, I'm just kind of you know what, I mean, I don't know, there was the couple of movies that really wowed me this year. I feel like other years they would be my 4, my 5. You know what I mean? And that's not a bad thing. 4 and 5 is a good thing, but I guess it's not that everything else sucks. It just feels like a lot of my movies on this list have been 7s and 8s, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree totally too. It feels like my list is made up of a lot more. And I'm not saying, once again, it's not a bad thing, but it's like those movies that would have hung out the bottom sometimes now kind of, well, I guess I can reach closer to the top. But once again, not saying it's a bad thing. They're still good movies. It's just that sad thing that I think the days of film and all that stuff is slowly dwindling. It won't go away, but it'll be like theater where it's there, but it's not the major thing anymore.
Well, I think that it's still going to be a big thing. I think it's just going through a weird transitional period. And I think that a lot of people kind of forget, what an impact COVID had on the industry. So things were in the process, got delayed. I know a lot of things eventually came out, but
yeah, it took a couple of years for some of those movies. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think on top of that, people just got used to once Disney Plus and Max started showing their new movies right there on the streaming service during COVID, it just kind of became commonplace for people to assume, oh, why go to the theater? It's going to be right here. So I think that a lot of and I also think it's a big combination of things. I think people are really tired. I mean, they still come out and they still do good depending on the franchise, but I feel like a lot of people are getting really fatigued on genre stuff. I think they kind of are wanting something more in some cases artsier, in other cases more cerebral kind of stuff. I don't know. I just point to things like Neon and A24. I know I always point to them, but I feel not that they don't always have good movie. They don't always. Not every movie they put out's good, but there's a lot of movies out there that are kind of that do good that you be oh, that beat a Marvel movie, So.
Yeah, no, and I think there is a little bit of a change up there and so on.
I don't mean to cut you off here, just to add to it. I just think people are tired of, even though I like Marvel, I think things like Marvel, things trying to emulate Marvel, just make everything seem kind of samey. And it's not really entirely Marvel's fault, in my opinion. I don't know the details of it, but I feel like it's studios trying to recreate that and just you got to mix it up. It can't all be this,
Yeah, no. I think that sort of is just you need a little bit of a change and so on, but yeah, I think also too the competition of other mediums, of course, video games and television being the two that have definitely taken away from traditional cinema, but yeah,
they have so much money for
yeah, it gets spread thin, no matter what, but so at the end of the day, but let's jump into our list. You want to start us off with number 10?
I'll start us off, but let me just start off with the movies I wanted to see, but didn't have a chance to see. I wanted to see Challengers. That one got by me. I actually started and was really enjoying Drive Away Dolls, but didn't finish it in time, so can't make the list, unfortunately. The Substance, I really wanted to see that. That got by me. Now, as far as moving on to my actual 10 though. Is it before we do that? Is there any movies you wanted to see that you didn't?
Yeah, the one that I feel really bad for not seeing and is Horizon, the Kevin Costner Western, because I've always said that it's that thing that like. When there's we've said this for like the entire podcast run that like when there's a Western in the theaters, you feel like you got to go out of your way to see it because you only get like one or two of those a year, and you should be goddamn grateful, And that one, I just remember when it came out in cinemas, it just came out at that time where it's like, oh, there's a 9 o'clock showing, and it's like, oh, it's 3 hours and 20 minutes. Well, I'm like, I'm not coming home past midnight on a work day. You know what I mean? Like Jesus. So I just never got around to it, and then sadly, once it came out, I think it was on HBO and so on. I think it's even on Netflix now. I just didn't get around to watching it. And that's the one that I feel kind of bad. I mean, I feel like Kevin's just very disappointed in me. He's just sitting there, arms crossed, shaking his head, like,
looking at you all the way from Yellowstone, just shaking his head on his horse.
Because you know what? There was one night where Kevin couldn't eat because I didn't go to the movies to see it, and because of that, he went home hungry once. He hasn't felt that in a long time.
He just went to his giant mansion, probably somewhere out in the mountains, somewhere, just beautiful, and just like went and sat down on this table, looked over at the Netflix ticker, and just saw the numbers going, and just saw he just needed one more digit up, and it didn't move. He just sat there, and then he looks over at his butler, and his butler just looks at him, shakes his head, puts the lid back on top of the thing, and puts it away, like. That boy let me down. The boy let me down. He's in bed. He's doing the Wolverine meme. Looks at a picture of you with like holding up like a Waterworld Blu-ray.
With the world's most expensive Blu-ray. Actually, no, I think the Mario Brothers one topped that one off. But because for a while there, I used to say the Waterworld one that I bought. Like there was a period where it was a $50 Blu-ray that I bought that was the super special edition, triple version, yada yada yada. I guess my Mario Brothers one topped it off because that was $100, but that also came with a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the main one.
Came with a vial of water from the world.
Yeah, it came with one of those limes that he was growing. You're like, here you go. Here's one. He's like, how old's this lime? Don't worry about it.
A paper towel that like Dennis Hopper used to wipe away some of his like eye patch musk. So
yeah, you get Jack Black's hat from the movie for all his cut scenes.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. He was the helicopter pilot or something. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's in the extended cut.
So, moving on to my number 10, or starting with my number 10. My 10 is Saturday Night.
Oh, okay. I'm going to tell you this right now. That's my number 6.
Okay. Yeah, so I thought that was, I kind of did not know about this movie. I was just flipping through some stuff, and I just saw it on there. I was like, oh, wow, okay, cool, and I just put that on. And I'll be honest, I like SNL. But I'm not really kind of like one of those huge SNL historians. I can't tell you which year was which cast and whatnot. I know the gist of like the ones I know for who started. It was Chevy. It was the ones I know off the top of my head. Chevy, John Belushi, and Aykroyd. Those are the three I know off the top of my head who started. And watching this, I just thought it was interesting because it was more, it was a comedy to a certain extent because when they just sit there talking bullshit, it's more of kind of like a fly in the wall, kind of like Aaron Sorkin-y kind of thing, where it's just kind of like moving past. Everybody's just kind of stressed. Everything's just high, like just going. And it's one of those things where it's warts and all. That's the thing about it. I appreciated like the only person who's not really an asshole is like Dan Aykroyd. Everyone in that movie is pretty much a prick. It's like maybe there's I forgot the guy's name, but the black dude, he seemed pretty cool. Some of the ladies, they seem cool, but like they had no problem saying, yeah, Chevy was kind of an asshole. Belushi was a fucking psycho and a fucking asshole. George Carlin, this thing did him no favors.
George Carlin hated it. He didn't even want to be there.
But at the same time, it was also just interesting because I also know that was a point when because Carlin's one of my favorites. But at the same time, though, this is a point when he was using a lot, and I think he was a little bit on. I don't know. I don't remember. I saw a documentary on him. There was a point where he was going a little downhill a little bit. I think this was then. But
maybe it's that thing like he had to take the job, because I just always knew that just from back in the day. I'm like, oh yeah, George Carlin was on the first episode, but he really did not like it. I think it's also too, maybe it's like we all know that like when it comes down to comedy, comedies comes in so many different like packages and forms. It's like it's like an action, like something like an action movie. Generally, anybody who likes action movies will probably like the same action movies. That doesn't really change too much. But comedy's so picky that like, what's funny to one person's not funny at all to another, and so on. And I could just see George Carlin being like, what is with this weird stupid show? I don't like these other actors and so on. Like I'm George fucking Carlin.
Yeah, and it was interesting just because like I said, I was not like a huge like SNL historian, so just watching this movie, I was like, okay, I just kind of liked the fast pacedness, kind of like the being on the fly on the wall. It's kind of like got a weird structure, but I also kind of like the whole thing of like at some point they turn to Lawrence Kasdan, and they're kind of like the Johnny Carson, just not make him look good. Johnny Carson gives him a call, threatens him, and then at some point, some guy who's a producer, I don't remember who, I don't know his significance in the long run of SNL, pulls him aside, like, look, I know you've been making fun of me, but I'm trying to make this show as good as I can, help you out as best I can. Because here's the thing, they don't want the show to do good. They want the show to fail. They want the show to fail because they can say they get so much things about, we want to do some counterculture shit, but they don't want to do counterculture shit. So they're doing this knowing the counterculture shit is going to fail. And then they're going to say, hey, we tried. What do you want us to do? And they're going to put that on you. That's what's going to fucking happen. And I kind of like how it's showing, it kind of lets you know like how much it kind of changed. And I thought it was interesting. I mean, spoilers, it goes good, but because SNL is still a thing. But I really like how the last line of the movie is what every episode starts with. We're not starts with, but like, like Live from New York, it's Saturday night, and just the movie ends on that. Like I thought it was a perfect way to end it. And the closing credits were like the opening credits to a show. So I just thought it was cool. And I don't think it's spoiling a lot, because if SNL failed, this wouldn't happen. I think another thing that's interesting is, I don't know, I forgot the director's name. He's the guy who did the 2 new Ghostbusters, as well as Juno and Up in the Air and Tully. His dad was the director of Ghostbusters. So, he probably grew up around Aykroyd and Bill Murray and all that. And he even directed Aykroyd. So, that he probably came to Aykroyd and said, all right, tell me some juicy shit on SNL.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I think the cool thing about it, too, is I like that the movie's an hour and a half long, so it's the exact length of an SNL episode, and what it is it's that hour and a half build-up right before the airing of the first show. So it has this kind of, like, ticking time bomb thing going on, like, is it going to be able to make it on there? So, I mean, granted, you know it does, but, and just all the struggles it had to go through, and the fact that, they had a lot more scenes than they, because once again, it's a first-time experiment thing. They're doing a live show. It's sketch comedy mixed with stand-up, mixed with, live performances of music and so on like that, and then they get to the point where it's like, I just like when Lorne Michaels is going on and he's like, okay, you got to do those skits, but can you do them like, at 2 times the speed? You know what I mean? How fast can you get them done? And, because there's even Billy Crystal, and I kind of forgot about that. Yeah. And Billy Crystal, but he didn't make it on the show because there just wasn't enough time, but he was there for the first episode in a sense.
He was a writer. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a skit and everything going on in there, and they just
Jim
have a
Henson.
lot of that there. Yeah, Jim Henson too, and I just like how Jim Henson's like, don't fuck the puppets, guys, don't fuck the puppets. And everybody's just like dicking with Jim Henson and stuff, and he's just kind of like the, almost like the John Denver, like, real nice guy and so on. The other thing I think is mind-blowing about this movie is how fucking accurate those actors look to the real actors. Like, that's that one where it's like, dude, it's almost kind of uncanny how good it looks.
Yeah. Like, it's also like, I don't know who he was clearly, I'm sure he was a real person, but there was like the show that was filming just downstairs and they're watching as a variety show. And I think it was J.K. Simmons playing him. And like at some point, like Chevy Chase is talking shit, like, whatever, man, you're the old news. I'm the new thing coming in. So stop hanging out with my girlfriend. Or they're giving comebacks to each other. And the guy just pulls his dick out and just stands there looking at him like, what you got after that, huh? What you fucking got?
Just swinging. Who's a swinging dick here? Yeah, I know that made me laugh so hard right there. Yeah, I just thought there's a lot of good stuff in there, and just the bits were great. And that's the thing is like, because growing up, I watched. It's funny because it's like I watched a lot of Saturday Night Live, like because they used to play the reruns like on VH1 and all kinds of TV Land and all that stuff. So 70s, 80s, 90s. I watched like quite a bit of that back in the day. It's by the 2000s is where like because SNL had like a turn and it started changing a bit by that time period. I always kind of say it's like that Tina Fey, Amy, whatever fuck her name is.
Amy Poehler. Amy Poehler's funny. I like Amy Poehler.
Yeah, it's like that's the era where it's like it lost me at, and then it's like I never really could get back in it. And once in a blue moon, I'll say they do have good bits here and there, but like it kind of went a different path. And I think I don't know, maybe it's just of course every single time it changes cast and crew and so on. But that was where like once it was in the 2000s. I don't know when it kind of get to like the yuppie era, because that was when NBC sort of turned into like the yuppie station, where it's like all the the shows were kind of more geared towards that and so on, and like the 2000s and so on. But the old stuff, the old SNL stuff, when it's just counterculture, just kind of like almost punk rock and raw and so on. I just love all that kind of stuff there, and I think this one kind of captured that pretty darn well.
Yeah, I mean, everything it goes on long enough eventually becomes an institution. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, I haven't really kept, like, my history with SNL was more of, like, watching old reruns on Comedy Central by the musical guest, what decade it is, and then like, maybe some of the references, because it was like, that was when I was like in elementary school, so, and a little bit of middle school. So, and then coming into the new stuff, or like newer stuff, I guess, like 2000s and up. I can think of some good stuff. I can think of some good sketches. I really like Bill Hader. I like Amy Poehler. I like the Lonely Island guys. Those guys are good. But, it's not all going to be hits, and not every season's fantastic, and not every sketch is going to be amazing. But I still think that regardless, even though I don't know much about Gen 1 SNL, what I do know I like, and this movie just kind of like, I see. And I also kind of like how much of a psycho Belushi was, because the idea of like, I didn't know this, because the whole thing is, I guess he was, aside from being like a drug addict, he was also just angry because he was actually a trained actor. He was a really good actor, and he thought this shit was beneath him. I didn't know. I just assumed he was some kind of Jack Black figure coming in and going, but I didn't know that he was like this. He's like, I went to school with Brando. I went to Juilliard. I did this. I did that. And he's angry that all he got was he's getting this thing right here. But then even how much of it hinges on him. And there's even like a very small passing line, like what they're looking for. I'm like, where's Belushi? Where's Belushi? Like, I'm an editor, not a goddamn animal handler,
Yeah, exactly. And he's just out there. There's like they have to go, track him down and everything like that. And I just think it captures a lot of it, and I felt like it feels really like accurate and legitimate.
Yeah. No, it felt real. And looking at it now, I'm like, actually looking at, not that I dislike this other movie, but I'm like, actually, I should probably switch this with my number 8, in all honesty. But regardless, we're here now. So
yeah. Here it is. We've crossed that bridge. But as I said, that's my number 6. So we'll see that probably again when we get farther up.
Yeah.
But well, going on to the next one, I'll go to my number 10. And my number 10, I'm going to go with the 4:30 movie, the Kevin Smith one.
Yeah.
And this is one of those ones like his. I remember, like, because, Kevin Smith sort of just fell off the edge of the earth for a moment. And, like, literally, it made sense once you kind of... I remember he popped on a Theo Von podcast. I'm like, oh, there's a Kevin Smith. There's like, here he is. Okay, whatever. And then it's like, he's like, yeah, I was in a mental institution for, like, 6 months. I'm like, what? Like, that threw me off a bunch. And it was like, well, I guess that makes sense why he hasn't had podcast or, you haven't heard anything. But then all of a sudden, it's like, boom, he had this new movie coming out. And I was like, well, I got to go check this out. And I like the concept of it. It was like, okay, back in the 80s, it's kind of like a rom-com, done kind of like a John Hughes film, pretty much about a young Kevin
American
Smith
Graffiti,
in a sense.
kind of.
Yeah, American Graffiti, all that kind of stuff. And, and going back and, just time and just seeing like, here's, it's just going to be hopefully witty Kevin Smith dialogue and all kinds of stuff. And, the movie did, I think, capture what it was like being a kid, even like, this is the 80s, but it's no real different than the 90s and 2000s of hanging out at the cinema, as teenagers, and like you and your buddies going to watch a marathon on the weekend, and then just kind of throwing in some other stuff along the way. And this also has a little bit of a, of course, the love angle going on there too. But I thought it was definitely one of the best Kevin Smith movies he's done in probably like the last like 3 or so films, because the last couple, like the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which doesn't sound like it should be bad, but I remember that one was just like that. I was so kind of bummed out with that. It was just like, just there's a couple moments that were decent, but for the most part, like a lot of stuff just did not. It was just like it was off. I don't know, something was missing there, And even Clerks 3, though I enjoyed it for what it was, maybe not as magical as, of course, Clerks 1 or 2, and then even Yoga Hosers and so on. But I thought this was a good comeback film for Kevin. I said I liked the premise. I thought the characters turned out to be pretty fun and funny and so on. And, just because it kind of captured that, like what Kevin does best is just sort of writing about his friends and putting them in real life situations. I think it was a really good experience.
Yeah, this didn't make my list. It very well could have. It really could have been like number 10 or number 9 for me. I figured you'd probably have it on here though, so I just like for the sake of variety,
Yeah.
Otherwise, this thing would be way too short. This
way too short. We're 2 movies in. We're already at 20 minutes.
That's true. What am I saying? Good point. But like all that Waterworld talk. No, I was gonna. The thing with it is like, this is probably his best movie since Red State. And
yeah, I'd say so.
And that's coming from someone who likes Tusk. And I think that this one, the acting is a little hammy. I think the acting and some of the lines are a little hammier, a little like over the top. But I think he's trying to emulate that 80s movie, that kind of vibe you get watching an 80s movie. And things were still like I think it was kind of like also kind of a little bit of return, like, because I don't remember Yoga Hosers. I know you liked it, but I don't remember Yoga Hosers being that witty. And there's a couple like kind of like funny little lines here and there, but I don't remember like it feeling like the Chasing Amy or Dogma level dialogue, or even like Mallrats level kind of like quippiness, where this one had some of that in it. And some of the like forced like points of it, of like the forced drama kind of seemed a little like forced, but at the same time, a lot of those 80s movies had that. And it was also pointing out that like how kind of like immature it is to kind of like, the whole thing with like, hey, hang out with the bros, why you want to hang out with the girl, and all that kind of stuff. And how like, of course, that guy would be super hypersensitive at the end of the day. The guy who's always voting. And something else that was interesting, just as someone who's kept up with Kevin Smith's podcast for a long time and feels like I don't know every aspect about him, but I know a lot about him. I think it's interesting that we're finally seeing a movie that's not about, because most of his movies are about like him post college. A lot of the movies are about like, or not post college, post high school, like hanging out with his friends after high school. So it's kind of like people like Walter Flanagan. I'm trying to Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson, yeah.
Like these guys that he met that were inspirations for Dante and Brody, and then expanding from there. Like, so I think that it's interesting to go back to see, these are his friends. I don't remember their names off the top of my head, but they were friends that he hung out with in high school and did like sketches with in high school during like the talent shows and whatnot. And I remember they were in the Clerks documentary, and I'm like, I remember the Snowball Effect documentary. I'm like, it's these two guys. Okay. That's interesting. We're kind of seeing that section right there,
Yeah, no, and I think that's what's kind of cool, just as kind of an autobiography kind of way is, it's like Kevin's just kind of hitting these different sort of sections and so on. It is kind of interesting, though, because since it is kind of like a romantic movie in a sense, but that doesn't come to like the last half an hour. It's like almost they talk in the very beginning, and then there's like 40 minutes or plus where it's just him and the bros, and then finally she kind of shows up at the total tail end. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
I did like a lot of like the little like bits we saw of the movies they were watching, or the trailers for the movies they were watching,
Oh yeah,
there's always supposed to be the Flash Gordon ripoff, so like that's the dream, man.
Yeah, Ralph Garman in it.
Yeah, I remember then like he had his He's like, man, I wish nuns were hookers back when we were in school, you know?
Yeah, no, I just thought it was a fun, kind of cool movie. I was really bummed I didn't get to see it in cinemas, but it was like next to impossible to find it somewhere. But once it kind of came out on Blu-ray, I just ended up buying that. And it had a little decent small special features with it, too, which was what I was kind of looking forward to. But yeah, 4:30 movie, that's my number 10.
That's a good choice. I like that movie. So I guess my number 9 is a movie called My Old Ass. And have you heard of this one?
I heard the title, but I don't know anything about it.
So basically, this girl living out in Canada, like out in the lakes. I don't know which lakes, just lakes in Canada. Looks pretty, looks nice, you know. She is turning 18 and getting ready to move, and she's so ready to be done with this life. She's kind of like a cool, hip lesbian girl who's very adventurous, very outspoken, and honestly kind of bitchy in some ways. And then on her 18th birthday, she ditches her family and goes hangs out with 2 of her best friends and does a bunch of mushrooms. And then she has a vision of herself from the future comes, and herself from the future is Aubrey Plaza playing her. So, and she's kind of like basically, it's not literally, that's the actress, but yeah, Aubrey Plaza comes in and just basically says, oh my God, like, how are you here? Like, I don't know. You took the mushrooms and I'm here. I remember this part, you know, and just as this whole thing where it's kind of like a dramatic comedy, but it's more like, it starts off kind of funny, kind of more like, not like big grand scale chuckles, but a lot of like quick little jokes, rapid fire jokes happen throughout it. But as it goes on, it gets a little bit more dramatic. So what ends up happening is they don't really take the time to explain it, which is fine. But basically what's up happening is she ends up like, herself from the future ends up leaving her phone number in her phone. So she calls and asking for help or asking, what should I do? I just met this guy. Should I do this? Should I do that? In the story, she realizes, she meets a dude and she's told like, if you ever meet someone named this, walk away. I'm like, okay, you know, and then she meets this dude and it's kind of like this thing where she's been thinking she's been gay this whole time, but she meets this dude, she finds out she's bi, and then out of that, she's kind of like, why can't I just be with this dude? Why, you know? And there's more stuff happens. It is a comedy. I feel like it's one of those movies. I feel like we can talk about like a big Marvel movie or something like that because everyone's seen it. Everyone fucking knows, or most people who listen to this show probably know. Something like this, there's still something to see, and there's like it's only so much in this movie, and so I don't want to spoil the ending. But basically, it's this funny, heartfelt coming of age story about a girl talking to herself from the future and kind of realizing that like time goes by so quick, you don't always realize it. And there's a part where she's talking to this dude she's been told to stay away from. He says, it's kind of sad when you think about it. Like 1 minute you're kind of hanging out with your friends, playing zombies or whatever. You get on your bike, you go home, and then due to whatever circumstances, that was the last time you ever did it. And you never realize it until later. Like you weren't able to enjoy it. You know what I mean? And for some reason, that line really hit me. I was like, oh shit, that's a good point. You know?
No, 100%.
Yeah. So it's just like the last time you ever did this stuff, most of the time you don't even realize that's the last time you're going to do it. And then, so it's about her kind of like taking it all in, saying, you can have a dick to your brother, be nicer to your brothers, and just kind of like small interactions, kind of like that kind of stuff. Like throughout the thing that are funny, like one of the brothers, like a little kid, but for some reason he's obsessed with like, I forget her name, but she's like this Irish actress that was in the movie Lady Bird, who's like in a lot of artsy Irish films, and he just has this wall of like her, like so just like when like the kid's like 12 and this girl is like in her late 20s and just has this giant mural on his wall he's making. He's like, I'm not even out of the fucking room yet, and I gotta worry about this Irish lady staring down at me while I sleep. You know? So it's like kind of like that kind of stuff, you know. So and it's like not gut busting laughing, but it's funny, and it's even kind of things kind of like just the kind of, they have the kind of like the oh my god kind of way they talk, but it's still kind of funny. It works like how old are you? She's like, I am in my late 30s. How old are you? I'm 39. Oh my god, I'm old. Oh my god, dude, fuck you, you know. She's like what happens to, oh my god, what happened, how do we get that gap in our teeth? Fuck you, use your retainer, you know. So she's like he says like, did we, and like she's like, do we still have, she's like asking her questions about like, oh my god, what happened to your pinky toe? Like, You don't remember Gabby's like second wedding? Oh shit, that hasn't happened yet. So it's just like small jokes, kind of like that. It was a movie I liked. It was a funny movie. It was a heartfelt movie, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a fun kind of fantasy, little mixed match of, kind of a real humor and just life stories and so on like that. Yeah, no, that sounds like a cool one. Yeah, as I said, that name kind of sounds familiar, but I don't know if I don't remember seeing a trailer or anything like that for the movie theaters or anything for it.
It does start off more as a comedy and becomes a little bit more of a drama as it goes on, but it's still peppered with comedy throughout it. So, it's I liked it.
Yeah. Well, I guess going up our list next, I'm going to go with my number 9, which is Bad Boys 4.
This almost made my list. Yeah, I was contemplating this one real hard.
Yeah, Bad Boys 4 is one of those ones I kind of almost wanted to watch it again because I haven't seen it since, I guess, when it came out May or June, so like in the summertime. But it was, once again, another solid entry in the series. Like, I will have to say that all 4 Bad Boys films is one of those ones, there's not a bad one in the bunch, which is nice. But this one just still, I felt like, still captured a lot of the magic, and it continues on straight from number 3. I remember there was somebody else who was to talk about it, like, well, I haven't seen 3 yet. I'm like, well, you better go see 3 before you see this one, or else you're just going to lead yourself into being like, who the hell are all these characters here? And why does Will Smith have a son all of a sudden?
I'll say, because I don't know if I covered it on the show, I didn't see 3 the year it came out, but watching 3 like on a plane like a year or 2 ago, that movie would have definitely made my list if I saw it that year. Like that, yeah. Like 3, I think might sound blasphemous. I think number 3 might be my favorite one.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good because it was on my list for whatever the heck year it was, 2 years ago maybe. 3, I don't know.
Yeah, no, 3 was really good. So I'm not gonna lie, watching this one, I kind of had high hopes. Maybe I was being a little unfair. I was enjoying it. I guess I was kind of like. I guess 3 really kind of, I felt like it's not fair to totally just beat it up. Like, you're not as good as this one, won't be as good. But like 3 did like just caught me off guard by how much growth and character development it had for the 3rd installment, as well as how much it pushed it forward. Like, it didn't just feel like another one. It felt like, oh wow, we really expanded on it. Where this one, it feels like it's another one, but it's a lot of fun,
Yeah. No. Yeah, it definitely. It's more of like it takes 3, becomes a sequel. Will Smith and his like new like estranged son kind of have to connect and whatnot, and then of course Martin Lawrence is being like there's parts of it that made me laugh so fucking hard where like Martin Lawrence is like he's supposed to be on a diet or whatnot and stuff, and then he's like I'm just gonna run into 7-Eleven real quick or whatnot, and Will Smith is just kind of looking at him like almost like an angry father, like okay, well you know what not to get when you go in there, and then he's in there and he's fucking like ordering a fucking hot dog and a bag of Skittles and whatnot, and of course you see some of this in the trailer, and then there's kind of like a shootout there, but I just love when Will Smith comes in, he finds with the fucking bag of Skittles, he slaps it out of his fucking hand. No.
I'm just, even the way kind of like there's I feel like each one, Martin Lawrence, I mean this one they kind of slightly flip the dynamic because Will Smith almost has like he starts having panic attacks, and Martin Lawrence like has a near-death experience with a heart attack, and so he's not afraid to die for a little bit, but at the same time eventually reverts back. But I mean, Martin Lawrence gets smacked around so much. I'm just waiting for like the 5th Bad Boys or 6th Bad Boys to open up in the middle of a car chase, and like fucking, Martin Lawrence is like holding his dick, bleeding. He says, Mike, they shot me in my dick, Mike. And then like, and like Will Smith is like, he's like, you will not get that dick blood in this car. You will not get that blood in this car. I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for that by this point.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no.
Get dick blood all over this leather interior. I swear to God. Then like this side swipe opens the door, like flings like fucking Martin Lawrence out at the bad guys, falls into him, and just like Bad Boy 7 or whatever.
Yeah, it just keeps going and whatnot. But yeah, no, it's one of those ones like it's still just as funny, still just as action packed. Yeah, it still has tons of great moments. Like I don't know, I felt like these movies have still always delivered, and Bad Boys 4 was definitely a solid entry.
I liked a lot of how some of the cast members from number 3, because I feel like sometimes Bad Boys just like sometimes when number 3, there was, I do feel a little sad because like for no reason the Mexican dudes from number like 1 and 2 aren't in it, and then this one they say they died undercover. Like, oh fuck, that's sad, just dismissively, they died undercover. But I do like the characters that carry over, because there is like the young team that Will Smith was leading in the 3rd one. I like how a couple of those members are still here. The lady, there's like the big buff dude, and then like his son comes back, and I kind of like the dynamic they add to it.
Yeah, no, it had a good team element there too. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in it, and it does make for a proper sequel to 3. As I said, those two kind of back up to each other right there, then and there. So you definitely want to see, I feel, 3 first before you saw 4. But once you see 4, it does add a lot to it.
Yeah. So that's your number 9?
That's my number 9.
Okay. Now, once we were talking about Saturday night, I was thinking, actually, no, I wish Saturday night was my number 8. So technically, this is my number 10. Saturday night is my number 8, but here is my originally my number 8 movie called Am I Okay? Now, I want to give you a heads up. If you Google this movie, it's going to say 2022. But it didn't. That's when I went to like a film festival. It didn't actually get like released until this year. So. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because unless you were there at that film festival, so.
Yeah, that doesn't count. In my opinion, it has to be, for a movie to be released, if not everybody can see it, it doesn't count.
Exactly, that's how I feel. So, this movie is another romantic comedy, kind of not really a romantic comedy. It's more of it's a comedy around romance, but it's not really a romantic comedy. It's basically, it stars Dakota Johnson, and I forget the other girl's name, but 2 movies in a row, a lady finds out she's gay. Just coincidental. No one wasn't trying to do a theme, but basically she's like this, girl in LA who's just getting by. Dakota Johnson, and she's Dakota Johnson, so she's pretty, but she for whatever reason can't seem to make any connection with any guy, and then she starts playing around with the idea. She's like thinking like, well, maybe I'm gay, and starts thinking or playing around with it. And it's just this socially awkward person who's like in her early or mid 30s, dating girls for the first time and slowly leading into it. In the meantime, her best friend, who is kind of like this, she's a very career driven girl, but she's also very free spirited and like a big partier and all that, and kind of like always the life of the party, who's kind of like someone she always leans on. She's getting ready to move to England for her job. So it's kind of like the one person she kind of hinges on is getting ready to move. So it's kind of like, okay, so my best friend's moving and I don't know what I am or who I'm attracted to. So it's basically, it's a little hour and 30-minute movie. And it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, once again, it's not like not gut-bustingly funny, but it's like enough quick little witty jokes in there, and the conversations seem very real. Like there's a part in there in the movie where there's a guy who's obviously into her and hits on her and goes for the kiss, and she like just jumps back like, oh, it's okay, whatever, and then it's just this awkward like, okay, whatever, fine, he's like a little depressed. Later they kind of make up in the movie. It's a sweet moment. It's also kind of funny, and he says to her like, this whole time I thought you were treating me like I was your gay best friend, and it's the other way around, like, oh, I guess you're right. So it's kind of small stuff like that throughout the movie. It was a funny movie, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't like hysterical, but there's a lot of like very good, consistent, like little lines of comedy peppered throughout it. And the relationships they had seemed very sincere, and the conversation seemed very sincere. So yeah, that one is we haven't done an 8, but it's technically my new number 10, which is still a good movie in my opinion.
Yeah, still. So that sounds like an interesting one too. Just, a little kind of almost like a indie comedy rom-com thing.
It feels kind of like, even though it focuses on one girl, it feels like Singles. That's kind of what it gives me vibes of. It gives me Singles with a little bit of, there's another movie I had in my mind. I had it written down, but I lost that note. Singles with a little bit of like, I don't know. It gave me a little bit of that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, well, Singles is always a great movie. I mean,
yeah.
To top it off, it's got Chris Cornell in it, so
it's not as good as Singles, I'll say that. But it reminds me of that.
Yeah. But, well, cool. Well, guess going back up the list, I'll go to my number 8. And my number 8, I'm going to go with Wolverine and Deadpool.
That was really fun. I really liked Wolverine and Deadpool.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones, like, the third one in there. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest part of it is it was kind of a cool send-off for, like, all the Fox era Marvel movies. So if you were into that, which obviously is like, us growing up in that generation of X-Men and, Fantastic Four and, of course, Deadpool and all that stuff there. Yeah, it was kind of a cool nod to so many of those elements. They threw a lot of characters in there that were either ones that were talked about, returning cameos and so on, which, it is that one where, yeah, you are pulling a lot of this stuff out. But I think for the Deadpool thing, it was a perfect place for it to work. I mean, you got to see the Channing Tatum Gambit, that we always, heard about, wanted, and thought that after seeing Hateful Eight, we're like, oh, shit, he's practicing for this role right here, and then it just never got to be. And then here he is here. Of course, you get, Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine. And you get him in, the traditional yellow garb Wolverine outfit. I mean, I know it's a lot of fan service type stuff, but once again, I think this one does fan service in the right way. Not just like hey, look, pretty cool, huh? No, it was a little bit more. I mean, even just the fact they bring Johnny Storm back and, for a split second, you go, wait a second. They do it with, well, no, it's not Captain America. It's Johnny Storm here, Fantastic Four, and just, all kinds of stuff. And I think just the story overall was pretty good. Once again, the comedy still works with Deadpool, I'll let you run the reins of that.
Well, it's also something to the effect of because I feel like people say, oh my God, enough with the fan service thing. Because there's the first few times you get some fan service of something you weren't expecting. You're like, oh my God, yes, more of that. But then it gets to the point where it felt hollow. And it felt like, even though I didn't hate this movie. I mean, I liked it more when I first saw it than I saw it again. I was like, no,
Flash.
I mean, I liked Flash, but it felt kind of like, even though it was cool seeing 1989 Batman, I'm like, I feel like Thomas Wayne Batman would have worked better for this, from Flashpoint. And if I'm being 100% honest, and, even the whole thing of like, okay, here's all the worlds colliding and all that kind of shit. Like, that's like, all right, it's there. It doesn't really feel like something where this feels like, well, it's worked into the story and it felt natural. Yeah. You can sit there and point out oh, look, there's Thor's helmet from the 60s, or there's the Fantastic Four car crashed, or that's the Thanos helicopter crashed or something like that. You can point that out. But it's not weird that it's there. It makes sense that it's there. And the idea that I think Deadpool is a fourth wall breaking character. If there's a place to do it, it's there. And I feel like that this movie, yeah, I mean, is it as good as Deadpool 1? I don't know. But I think that this one might be, it's really high up there. It's really high up there as far as those movies go. And I think that this one, yeah, it was a good send off. People were complaining that I want to say the guy who made Logan was saying yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a fun movie, but I mean, I kind of gave him, I know it's a whole other Logan, but the thing of we could just bring him back and all this and that, it just seems kind of to defeat the purpose. Well, no, I mean, it's comics. It's not I understand what you're saying. That was your movie. The movie acknowledges that was your movie. This over here, and I'm not trying to throw shade at that guy. There's always going to be another Logan. There's always going to be another Wolverine. Yeah. No matter what you do, there's always going to be another Batman. So I get what they're doing here, So, and it was a fun movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I said, it's the cameos are cool, the story works, the comedy's there, it makes for it was kind of a good, this is the other big thing, is I remember Deadpool 3 was kind of the one to be okay, we're kind of bringing back a more R-rated experience. It kind of kicked the pants into kind of a little bit more woke type stuff and said hey, no, we're gonna say some ridiculous shit. We're gonna have some ultra violence and and just have a lot of fun. And I think that was kind of a good thing that it needed to sort of happen. And I know that Disney's always kind of, I think there's that period where they're so iffy about, it's that thing that Deadpool makes money, but it doesn't look good next to the mouse.
Well, even the whole thing, I don't even think that Disney's been afraid of putting the whole thing. I think that I think all the people complain about the woke shit in Marvel. I think that's not even a real complaint or a real problem for Marvel. The problem with Marvel is more of just like quality control and too much shit coming out at once and all that kind of stuff. I've never really had, I don't really think, I think people who, I think most people say woke, most of the time when people complain about woke shit, I'm just like, oh God, I hear these guys come queefing into a fucking microphone every time a fucking black character's added to something, you know? So, but like, but like at the same time, I do think that it's just been a lack of quality control for Marvel. There's been too many things putting out. And this movie even acknowledged that. Kind of like because something that like a line that like people often, I don't even know if they even say it in any other Marvel previously, but there's a joke where people say like, you know, it's like a lot of that Marvel dialogue that, oh, he's right behind me, isn't he? Type shit. And then they literally do that, but then followed up with a joke where he's all like, he's right behind me, isn't he? He turns around, look at this MCU. Sorry, it's a low point. You know, goes back to it. So it's kind of like they were literally on the message boards, like, let's really fucking piss them off, you know? So I thought that was, you know, it was a fun movie. And I just think they know the characters, they know the situation. And yeah, I think that this movie's not going to appeal to everybody. But I think that, especially the fact that when they're showing like all this stuff at the end of like, the 20th Century Fox stuff, and they're playing Good Riddance by Green Day. I'm like, that hit me in a couple. First off, that was my middle school graduation song. Secondly, I was in middle school when the first X-Men came out. So here we are.
Yeah, so yeah, it's all there. No. I think that's the thing, is there's a lot of stuff going on there, and I do think that hopefully it does put the trajectory of making, you know, once again, it's just another one of those ones that as long as good rated R movies, you know, seem to work out, we won't kind of have, you know, it kind of broke out of the soft era, which was the late 2000s, I think, and I think this one kind of does give a nice hard hit to that. So hopefully moving forward, I think this movie should do a whole lot of good because of that.
It's the first MCU thing we rated R. Originally, the Netflix shows were TVMA, but then there was some question of like, are those still MCU? Because Kevin Feige didn't have full control of them. There's some like, is it the same thing? And then they came out with this, and then later Kevin Feige's like, yeah, it's the same thing. Netflix shit's the same thing too. Like, oh, okay, so it's all that's okay. So this and Netflix shows are the only R-rated things they have so far, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's my number 8 right there. So,
not to be technically.
Yeah, I mean, granted, those the Netflix ones aren't movies, so there we go.
Yeah,
that solves that issue.
True.
But let's see, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Blink Twice.
Blink Twice. I didn't see this one either in cinemas.
So this movie, this was a horror, like thriller, like psychological horror thriller kind of comedy. Basically, Channing Tatum plays like some kind of big, dreamy tech entrepreneur. And I forget her name, but first off, let me make sure this is the person I'm thinking of, just so I'm not like totally looking like an asshole so I'm not looking like an asshole if I get it wrong. Basically, there's these two girls that work for a catering job, for a catering company, and they always work at this, there's, one second here. Yeah. Basically, is this the same girl? Just making sure I don't want to like look like an asshole and say like, oh yeah, totally this lady who's in this other thing, and it's not her. No, not her. Never mind. Okay, sorry. I was going to say, oh, she's in this other thing. It's not her. Okay. Anyway, I don't know what else she's in. So, regardless. So basically, these two girls who are friends who work for a catering company are catering to this very fancy gala it's ran by Channing Tatum he's like this tech entrepreneur, and he invites them to go for like his like private island for like getaway and party, like this crazy lavish party with all these crazy eccentric billionaire people. And the thing is it starts off just kind of hanging out. There's a couple of weird little things, but they're just basically these people hanging out on this island, just kind of like having fun. It's them, these other couple of girls, and these other like weird eccentric billionaires. In this movie, it's just kind of interesting because he recently had a thing where he abused his power, and he was like dating girls at his company, and it has this aspect of like movie that basically speaks on forgiveness, cancel culture, as well as like when's it real, when's it sincere, how do you know, and as it goes on, so she's just kind of hanging out at this party, at this thing, and they're having fun, but then like she starts having to try to remember, so she can't remember certain things, and she starts to lose track of how long she's been there, and then at some point, like her friend just disappears and no one knows about her friend. Like, who's your friend? Who are you talking about? So then it just kind of becomes a little bit of this mystery of trying to figure out what happened to her friend. Why do they kind of just suddenly forget things and then appear somewhere, like appear there the next day? And then just little things of like, there's something going on and someone's hiding something. And it becomes a deeper, more fucked up thing the further it goes. It's not... Throughout the whole movie, it's pretty tame and it's pretty just more like cerebral shit. But the last like 20 minutes of it, it kind of becomes like a slasher film to a certain extent. The last 20 minutes actually get kind of violent. Like not horrifically, well, I mean, in some cases horrifically violent, but like even like the other eccentric billionaires. So the main one is Channing Tatum, and maybe not all more billionaires, some are kind of hanger-ons. It's Channing Tatum. Then there's like Haley Joel Osment, who's like playing like a washed up sitcom actor. Then there's like Christian Slater. He's just some weird hang around, he's just friends with like billionaire, just hops from billionaire to billionaire, kind of like some weird kind of thing like that. They're all just, it's kind of more just, it's like one of those other cases where it's just like a lot of funny dialogue, but also there's some weird underlining thing to it. And once you kind of figure it out, like, I'm not going to lie, the mystery is kind of answered like roughly around the halfway point, in all honesty, if I remember correctly. And the mystery's answered at the halfway point, and then once they answer that mystery, it's like, fuck, how do we navigate this? And that itself is interesting, and seeing how they got around. The only reason I really like this movie, and I would have liked it more, but the ending, it's not a bad ending. It's mostly a satisfactory ending. The only thing is, I'm not sure how big of a time jump there is at the end, but you go kind of like, how would they be able to pull this off? Or how would they be able to do that given their resources and X, Y, and Z? That's the only thing. But it was regardless of that, it was still a really fun, enjoyable movie. And it was actually directed by Zoe Kravitz, too. So,
that's cool.
Yeah. So I really liked this one. I think this would have been higher if they explained the ending a little more. Like the ending, it makes enough sense, but you also just take into account of who the characters are and like how would they be able to pull this off, kind of thing. That's all it was. But at the end of the day, I liked everything the movie was saying, and I also just really found it be really enjoyable. And then when the ending and the violence starts to happen, it actually happens in like a pretty like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting that.
No, that sounds cool. It sounds like it's got a good surprise there. It sounds like it's got a great list of actors playing in it and so on. Yeah, I remember this one kind of coming out, but it felt like it kind of, once again, it's the only downfall that nowadays is that movies kind of come and go so fast that like, it's like if you miss it like in that one pocket moment, it's like, yep, it's gone.
I watched it on a plane. I watched it on a plane when I was coming to visit America, but I think it might be on Amazon.
Yeah, maybe it was. I want to say, I thought that one did come to cinemas. It does.
It might have. Yeah. Amazon movies usually do go to cinemas for a minute at least.
Yeah, but they're mostly really short-lived. So, but yeah, no, that sounded cool. So, what was that? Your number 6?
That's my number 6.
So, I guess I'm on 7. Was that your 7 then?
That was my 1, 2, 3. Wait, sorry. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That was my 7.
Okay, so my number 7, I'm going to go with Furiosa, Mad Max. 5,
that was fun.
Technically. Yeah, no, that was a good one, and it's just once again, I'm glad to see that George Miller is still making movies at whatever he is, 78 years old or something like that. He's still making really ridiculous, crazy stuff, and I think the fact that he's still in charge of Mad Max is what keeps it kind of feeling really original. Because there is that thing that once you lose the original creator, a perfect example, Star Wars. Once George isn't there, it doesn't feel like it's Star Wars. It feels like you're watching somebody's fan fiction of Star Wars. And not saying that they're, Rogue One and stuff like that's really solid. And I do enjoy them for what the heck they are. But it's just one of those ones. It's like you're missing the original author. But I think because George Miller's always doing Mad Max movies, they still feel like, okay, these things are still in the same world. They still have the same vibe and everything like that. And this one was just kind of an interesting one for a prequel story for the Furiosa character from Mad Max 4, where it goes through her whole life. And it does play out kind of way different than I would have thought. I remember when seeing this in the cinemas, it's like, one, she's like a kid for like the first hour of the movie. Now, granted, the movie's like 2.5 hours long, so it's got some time there. But like, I mean, even maybe longer than an hour, she's like a kid. It really like slow burns its way up in like 5 different chapters to kind of make this movie. But each chapter is very interesting. There's always action. There's always cool stuff in there. You get Chris Hemsworth really playing get to chew scenery as like full on Australian, which is badass, and just watching him kind of battle with what's the main villain's name?
Immortan Joe.
Yeah, Immortan Joe. So, and just having all those kind of characters return and so on, and just seeing this kind of world there between Gastown, the gun armory area, and then Immortan Joe's like thing. There's just a lot of good stuff there. It's like that one. It doesn't really do anything radically new from like Mad Max 4. It just more expands on that kind of, style.
The only thing with this one, because my only real criticism with it, and it's kind of also like one of those things that I'm not sure if you can call it a criticism because I totally get it. The last Fury Road was really expensive, and I don't know if I don't think it flopped, but it didn't do as good as they hoped it would. It was more like a word of mouth movie, and so they didn't really do everything as real and as authentic. There is a lot of CG in this movie. So that's the trade-off. But I'd rather have a movie with more CG, because that's the thing. Like, you feel how real Fury Road is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the sandstorm's fake or whatever, But, like, at the same time, there's just something so visceral about that movie. And so seeing this, and I did not have a chance to see this in theaters. I really wanted to, but I did see it, and I think that I've heard people complain about Chris Hemsworth's character, but I really liked his character, because the thing is people act as if like he's just kind of goofy, so it's kind of hard to take him seriously. Like, well, that's the point. The thing is, about a big point about at least Fury Road to this movie, it's pointing about how a lot of like fascists are really fucking goofy assholes. They're really fucking incompetent. They're really fucking stupid. It's just a matter of like getting enough people under them to push things in their direction. So the idea that you have someone like Chris Hemsworth, who is really fucking ruthless, who's he is deadly, and he can get some stuff done. But the thing is, it's more of his own hubris and more of him trying to be the biggest dick in the room, which always makes him like shoot himself in his own foot, more or less. And Immortan Joe, he kind of has like, because even going off like, that's what I love about George Miller's direction. They never flat out explain it, but you can kind of tell. Immortan Joe tries to present himself as this godly-like man, but he puts on this thing which is like a fake. He's like a flabby sack of fucking dough, but he puts on this thing that makes him look like he's fucking jacked, and people always see him at a distance. So here's this fucking jacked fucking man of the old world who's going to lead the way, and then all these fucking people who don't know any better are just fucking following them. And then so he's smart enough to like know how to game the system and kind of keep him at arm's length, where the Chris Hemsworth character, as deadly and as crazy and psychotic as he is, he's still a fucking goof at the end of the day, and that's what gets him.
Well, and I think the other interesting thing, too, is because, in a sense, he kills Furiosa's mom and whatnot like that. Yeah. But he's still, in a weird way, it's like he's this guy who literally just steals this, like, kid, but, like, he literally just, like, turns her into, like, his daughter. Like, it's a strange one. He's, like, loving in a weird, like, way. It's not like he's, it's just like one of those ones, like, he almost, like, it's like his surrogate daughter, yet he got her just by, like, killing the mom, and she knows it, he knows it, but he almost looks at it kind of, like, in a different way, which is kind of funny. And the whole way through, she's biding her 20-year period or whatever to finally get her revenge, but I just like the way that he sort of like treats her like one of those ones, especially even like at the very like end when they finds her like 20 years later and he realizes who it is, and he still refers to her like it's almost like his surrogate daughter. I'll be honest, I watched it, like I saw it once, and I saw it like 4 months ago or something, and I really liked it. So I don't really have it scene for scene, beat for beat.
but there's just a lot of good scenes in it. It does linger. Okay, that's the thing, because most Mad Max films, they were like over the course of like a few days, or even Mad Max Fury Road was over the course of like a day and a half, you know? So it's kind of like, you know, so going back to this, like it's over the course of like 20 years or something. So it really takes its time. But no, like even for how much of a buffoon the Chris Hemsworth character is, he is still like threatening enough, and I can imagine someone like him, because that's all it is, just a bunch of idiots fighting for like woman and gas out there. Yeah. So, you know, I liked his character. I thought Anya Taylor-Joy did a great job. You know, everyone in it did a great job. It was once again that kind of over the top Mad Maxes, and we even got to see a little bit more of like, we kind of got their gist of them in Fury Road, but even like Morton Joe and his like fucked up children, we got like more a vibe of what each of them were about.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you definitely get more character stuff there and so on. Yeah, as I say, it just adds a lot to it. And this one is a little bit fresh in my head because I actually watched this one again just 2 weeks ago or so beforehand. I wanted to kind of remember everything on it. But yeah, it's like overall, it's like I felt like I liked it more even the second time I watched it because I guess I knew exactly how the pacing was going to go and so on. And there's just a lot of cool scenes in it. Like, I mean, like there's just great action scenes. Like I really like that one where like they go to like the ammunition place or whatnot, and
Bullet Town.
Bullet Town, and they go in there and the gates kind of come down on them, but it's just a great like action scene of them driving around there and just like how they're going to break their way out and so on there, and just just this search for all the different things. But I do hope that there is going to be another one, and I hope, because this one did take a moment. Like, what did it take, 6 years to come out between Fury Road? 7 years maybe.
It was kind of like. Yeah,
even longer. It was kind of like 8 years. Was it 2016 is when Fury Road was?
I think so, something like that. Yes, 16 or 17.
So yeah, so let's just say 7 to 8 years somewhere there. I hope that the next one can, because you hate to sort of say it, but when you're getting up there in age, how many more, you only got so many more movies you can direct. But for the fact that he's still like putting out banger films like that age, it's like that's what I love about it.
And he's like in his 80s, and he's still crazy, making these like fucking crazy movies where you're like, was there an adult present for this?
Yeah, they're more crazy than like, if you thought that Mad Max, the Road Warrior was crazy, it's like you almost like he found a way to like really just ramp that up 3 times more. The only thing I would love to see Thunderdome come back if they do another one. And really the only thing that this is my only like. If you could just have Mel Gibson come back as Mad Max, like that would be that's like the one thing missing. And it's like Mel Gibson's still getting like shunned because he has a new movie coming out that's got fucking Marky Mark in it, Marky Mark in it, but like it literally is doing that same thing. It's like from the director of Braveheart, or whatever, not Heartbreak Ridge, but Hacksaw Ridge and all that stuff. It's like, dude, you can't even say Mel Gibson's name still. Come on.
I think I heard about that. It's the movie where one of them hijacks a plane or something like that, right? Or one of them's like Marky Mark's like a terrorist or something like that, I think.
I think so. And Marky Mark's bald in the movie, so it's interesting.
Oh, okay. Right.
He's got like 1980s bald, so.
Oh, very flattering. It's character acting. Well, it's character acting,
but yeah, it's that thing that like. Because Mel Gibson's like literally like when he shows up in a movie, and I know we're getting kind of off topic of different ones here, but like you really see how good of an actor he is compared to like everybody else. I mean, perfect example is like you watch Expendables 3, and when Mel Gibson's in there, it's like, holy fuck, here's an actor. Don't get me wrong, I love all the other guys, but you see Mel Gibson show up, and it's like, let me show you guys how acting fucking works.
Well, even before all the shit with him and all the drama with him, he was somebody who, among all his like action star cohorts or coworkers, I don't know what you'd say, or colleagues, he was also a lot more into like award-winning drama shit too. He can do like a big action movie, but then he would also be in a big drama film or like a suspense thriller where, say, Stallone, even though I really like Stallone's generally always done mostly action movies, and that's what you expect of Stallone,
Yeah.
So it's
when Stallone does something, it's not an action movie, it really throws you off.
And he can do things that aren't action. He can. I've seen him, and he's been good about it. But like, so you see someone. So I remember in Expendables 3. I don't remember liking Expendables 3 that much, but I remember that he was good at it. I remember that, and I remember that his like. There's a scene between him and Stallone that was pretty good, but that was also a long time ago. Haven't seen it really since the theaters. So, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Furiosa. That's my number 7. So going up the list, what's your number 6?
It's gonna move a little fast here. Wolverine and Deadpool, or Deadpool Wolverine.
Okay, yeah, of course. I said it wrong. I did the Wolverine first.
Yeah.
So okay, well then my number 6 is Saturday Night. So we're moving ahead here.
All right. My number 5, and there's gonna be a little controversy here. My number 5 is Monkey Man.
Yeah.
I know
This is that movie. I really thought I was gonna love this movie because this is the one when you showed me the trailer for it. I was like, oh fuck, this is gonna be amazing. I can't wait. Fucking went and see it opening day in theaters and so on like that. I didn't hate it or anything like that, but I just felt like I walked out very lackluster. That was my only thing, is I thought like there was elements in it that were interesting, but there was a lot of stuff that like I just felt like I didn't. It had kind of a weird. The cinematography was the part that bothered me the most, and I didn't like the cinematography. It just used a lot of shaky cam and weird angles, and like they felt unnecessary. I don't mean weird like in like, but they felt like they were unnecessary. Like I don't know why they chose certain ways they shot it. Like it just felt like that kind of detracted from it, but I want to hear why you really enjoyed it, because sometimes you can change the face on these.
Change your mind on it.
Yeah, I can't remember. There was one of these years where I remember there was a movie I didn't like, and then you talked about it, and I was like, you know what, that actually sounds pretty good now. I don't remember
what that is. Maybe, was it Us? Maybe, but
I think it was Us. I think it was, because I didn't really care for that movie, but then when you kind of explained it more, I'm like, you know what, I think that actually sounds more interesting now.
I guess here's the thing about it, because I watched that trailer. Now, I'm not going to lie, that is like one of the best made trailers in a while. So it does make it look like we're going through some action the whole fucking way. But then, like, before going to see the movie, I heard a couple of reviews, and the reviews were, it's really good when the action's awesome. It's really awesome, but it's a little bit of a slow burn. And it's kind of like it takes a while to get to the action. When the action happens, it happens hard. Takes a little bit of a breather, and then goes fucking hard again. And I was like, okay, I'm prepared. I know now. So then going to see the movie, I was prepared for all that. And the way I was viewing it, I can think of a lot of like my favorite 70s action movies. And a lot of my favorite 70s action movies aren't nonstop action all the way through. Maybe something like Your Eagle's Dare is. But even say something like, even though it's not this, like something like Wild Bunch, or like The Getaway, or just Sam Peckinpah movies in general, like that, or Crosses of Iron. That's not jam packed with action, but when the action happens, it's very hard and it's very rough. And that's what this movie is too. And there's a lot of other. For some reason, my mind was just going to Sam Peckinpah, but it was just. But it was just kind of, I was just thinking, okay, it's an action movie, it's taking its time, and it's more than anything, it's more about the slow calculating of revenge. And it was also really trying to point out the major class divide and class system they have in India right now. Yeah. And a lot of the political turmoil with, I believe, Modi, who is like, that how like he's kind of their that's who that religious leader who is almost kind of ruling everything that way. He was supposed to be that political leader there right now. And I guess just watching that, because you hear things like this all the time, but it just seems so foreign and so far away. And then you see this movie and they kind of put more of a narrative around it, and they amp things up, of course. And they even actually use some of the protests. They actually use real protests they had for people protesting Modi, apparently. No. So it was basically just like, let's just do like, right. There's a lot of class system shit going on in India. There always has been. Perfect setting for a revenge movie, so let's do that. And the thing is, I think people are trying to say, oh, it's like Indian John Wick. It's like, no. I mean, I feel like this was, I think John Wick definitely helped something like this get popular and get made. But the idea that like this still was very much its own identity, because even something like John Wick kind of happens pretty quickly. Like, it takes like maybe 10 minutes before people start getting fucked up in John Wick. It takes like like 30 minutes of this movie before people start getting fucked up. When they get fucked up, they get fucked up hard. And the thing is, a lot of the action was very close in your face, really gritty. But I also really liked that it wasn't like this. He was practicing and he was going at it, but it was this idea that like he basically was somebody who he had to like bottle it up this whole time and kind of wait. He had to go into fights and be the heel and always lose. And while preparing and always losing and always taking shit work and always just getting shit on, he basically had to just bide his time and wait. And when he goes in and fights, not everything goes perfect. Like the gun jams on him. He doesn't. The things don't go according to plan. It doesn't go perfect. He has to just play it out. He has to figure it out. And even then, like once he's like, I'm done being the person everyone shits on, and he like goes into the fight and he does not throw the match, and he just goes and becomes more of a symbol from there. Like people are, I don't know, a lot of people were expecting him to go to fuck people up in the monkey mask the whole time. Like for some reason, I was not expecting that. I thought that might happen once or twice, but people were expecting him to walk around in the monkey mask. Like I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was just going to be that scene when he was in the arena. For some reason, people are expecting that for the whole movie. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't see that, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I was expecting that either. I kind of thought the same. I thought that was like a lucha libre type thing, you know what I mean, where he wears the mask in the ring and whatnot. But yeah, carry on.
Yeah. So seeing like how like, and I only saw this movie once, and I saw it in theaters like the week it came out, so it's not as fresh in my head. But for what I do remember of it, I remember it being like, we got to take. It's about slowly taking your time. But even like going and getting that revenge, it comes at a price, because he's probably dead. He sees his mom, so more than likely he's dead. And even the spoilers, but I think this is one of those movies. I think this is one of those movies that if you're listening to this, you probably saw it. Just assuming. But anyway, and also it's something to the effect of I feel like I thought it was also just. It also started to bring in kind of some of that crazy grindhouse aspect. Like this is like, it's a very artsy action movie, but we're also going to bring in the grindhouse shit. Cause there's the whole tribe of, I don't remember what they're called, but they're a real thing, of these trans people that kind of live, and they're not really viewed as like people who change gender. They're viewed as more of a third gender in like the eastern part of the world. And there is this thing about treat them well. Like I heard someone I was actually listening to Marley's podcast, and somebody who was really liked this movie was talking about it. I don't remember his name. I wish I did, but he was talking about this movie, and he himself is Indian, I believe. And he was saying that like, there's a belief that if you're good to these people, because these people are very like, are like considered to be less fortunate and have to have the world against them. If you're good to them, you'll get some good luck back. So the part when he goes to them, they take him in, he's good to them, and then the good luck is them coming in, fucking people up with swords. So yeah. So under the fact they're playing like Indian death metal in a fucking club, and you see these motherfuckers slashing people up, and he's just so like, that's the thing. Yeah, it takes its time. It's slow. But when the action happens, it happens fast, it happens hard, it happens for a while, and it happens like artfully too. And it's a movie that's also saying something. So it was just this movie that I really enjoyed it. And I think from 5 up, from this point on, it's not like a solid, complete structure, but this is kind of like from here on up, these were, I feel like this is this echelon of movies for me.
Yeah, no. Well, that does make me kind of want to watch this one again. As I said, I didn't like dislike it. I think that thing. I went in there with like, I thought I was going in for an Indian martial arts movie, and it sounds weird. The cinematography, that was the one thing that I really remember. I know it's been this movie come out March or something like that. I think that was
like March or February. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty early on, and I just remember the cinematography. I know that sounds like a strange one, but like it kind of just threw me off, because I just thought it just had strange choices throughout it. Like, and wasn't really my favorite there. It kind of almost like in a weird way took me out of the movie. But I did like when the moments were good. I did enjoy it, and though there is the action stuff, and it doesn't bother me. I'm fine with the slow burn. Once again, I was expecting more like Hong Kong, I guess, kung fu movie, and then you are getting something more, 70s revenge flick, So maybe going back into it again would give me a better appreciation for it the second time round because I know what I'm getting into now. It does make me want to see it, but so yeah, Monkey Man #5. Right.
And I'm just, before we go on, not saying you like it as much as me, but I feel like it might be maybe kind of a thing like The American, because we both saw The American together. Like, well, that was kind of fucking slow and boring. And then over the course of like 4 days, I was like, I was thinking about it. Actually, I think it's a good movie. Yeah, I think it's a good movie too. So
yeah, that was exactly it. That movie really went up in like my book after. Yeah, sometimes you got to think on them too. And that's that one. I'm curious about it. There was 2 movies that kind of came out around the same time. There was that Boy Kills World, and that was another one too.
I wanted to see that.
I'll say that one. It's worth watching. It's not on my list. I'll say that. Once again, I thought I was going to like that one a little bit more too, though. It's still good, but like I didn't. Once again, it was another one that the trailer looked fucking amazing. The fact that it had Archer in it, but the Archer thing's actually kind of weird. It's cool because it's Archer, but it also makes it feel like you're watching like Mystery Science Theater 3000 or something like that.
I know the concept. It's in his head because he's mute, right? Yeah.
He's mute, so he chooses his voice as Archer, which is or what's his name?
John C. Benjamin or something.
Yeah, John C. Benjamin. Yeah, there we go. But that kind of reminded me in that same way too. Like I thought I was gonna really fucking dig that movie, and I was like, well, it's good, but not, maybe if I give it another watch, but still fun. But okay, going up the list here, we're on my #5 now. I'm gonna go with Sonic the Hedgehog 3 for my #5.
That's fair.
I'm like, you know what? I kind of thought I'm going to put it right there, dead center of my list in a sense. Because don't get me wrong, I really did enjoy it. I don't think it didn't hit me as hard as like I guess Sonic 2. I think Sonic 2 was the one for me. Because, we have Sonic 1. We know how that goes. You start off with the weird fucking the original trailer. You're like, what the fuck is this? And it's at that point where you're like, you know what? I just got to see it to see it. You know what I mean? If this is what we're going with, well, let's see what the fuck. And then, of course, in 6 months, they actually fix it and course correct. And then it turns out to be a legitimately good movie. It's simple. It's just Sonic and Robotnik and, some new characters. But for the fact that it delivered with such, witty, fun dialogue, good soundtrack, it captured the vibe of Sonic, decently well enough. I think there was such a surprise to it. And then I think the second one, because the second one actually makes quite a large jump. You take the first one for what it was, and then the second one, next thing you know, it's got literally levels that look like straight out of Sonic the Hedgehog. The movie's kind of progressing throughout stuff. It throws Knuckles in there, of course. We get Robotnik becomes more Robotnik, like, in the process. So it just feels like it goes like even harder Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, it still has, a handful of scenes like the wedding one and so on like that are kind of the hold-ons to the, the previous characters you got to kind of have. And then I guess going into the third one, it adds Shadow in there, and the Shadow stuff's really good, and I really like the Shadow stuff a lot, Robotnik definitely is there to chew scenery and maybe chew scenery a little too much. It is funny, it is jokey and so on like that, but sometimes I almost feel like that part there almost took away a little bit from Sonic, but I'm not saying that like the stuff it's still really good and I still really enjoyed it and so on. But I think the reason why I'm saying it's like #5 is like, I don't know, it just didn't hit me like the way that Sonic 2 did, where Sonic 2 was like, oh shit, realistically, I'm like, as far as for a Sonic movie, other than a couple extra scenes, it's not that they're bad, it's just, you could just minus them down realistically. It still was pretty darn Sonic. Where this one here, it goes maybe just a slight bit further, but like I thought it was almost going to go a little bit harder on the Sonic, But at the same time, I do give it credit. So like, even it has the the I guess the made up movie characters, but they're not there too much. And if they are there, they kind of have a very logical way they're in there. So it's okay. And it's like I don't mind fucking Cyclops and his wife Which one? Chris Marston.
Something about James Marston and Tika Sumpter.
James Marston. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and they're both good. That doesn't bother me. Of course, they do find a way to put the sister character in there and her husband and so on. But once again, it's like it does that thing where it's like, hey, we got them in here. They can get an acting credit, but it's just they're wearing masks. That's all it is. But no, overall, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, all great. Shadow, I think that part's the best part of it. The Shadow stuff is done really good. The backstory they put on Shadow, it gives you that Sonic the Hedgehog or Sonic Adventure 2, something kind of light, but really has that. I mean, even just having the Crush 40 song, the action up in space and everything there, I really overall totally enjoyed it, even if it is just, I will say maybe it's that thing that the slapstick of Dr. Robotnik, because of him and Gerald Robotnik. Gerald Robotnik. That part's the only thing. It's like that part is sometimes goes almost like, Mel Brooks presents Sonic the Hedgehog slapsticky a little bit. It's not bad. Here's the thing: it's still funny and it's still good, but sometimes it's like, okay, this is going a little hammy.
Yeah, the thing about it is, I guess I knew to expect that. It's kind of like I had really high expectations after seeing Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And then the more I was finding out this movie and the trailer came out, and then my expectations were lowered a little bit. Like, I still thought it was going to be good, but my expectations were lowered a little bit. And then I'm not going to lie, when seeing it actually surpassed my expectations just because how hard they went on some of the things where this one wasn't afraid to get more emotional. This one wasn't afraid to get more darker. And where I find, like, the humor in Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I actually think Sonic 1's a little funnier, but Sonic 2...
Oh, yeah.
Sonic 2, even though I like Sonic 2 way more, I find the humor in Sonic 2 ranging from like, okay, to like, yeah, all right, Robotnik. All the Robotnik stuff's pretty good, but everything else around it was just kind of like, okay, we're trying a little hard here, But then or there's actually cringy dialogue here and there. Where this one, I don't really find myself cringing. They need the humor. I didn't really, nothing like that. Like, I felt like it was all pretty, like, even like. The only thing, I think that the Ivo and Gerald stuff went on a little long at the dance scene, and then when they kind of finally go against each other. Like, if I had like one little like fanboy note, I honestly think what would have been better, and I know this is way more expensive, and I honestly get like why they didn't do this, and it was probably, hey, Jim Carrey just wants to do funny shit. I'm like, okay, well, he's probably got a lot of sway. I'm not saying I know for a fact that's what happened, but I can see this happening. Apparently, there's like storyboards where they were like zapping each other more with lasers. It was more serious, but then Jim Carrey was doing more of his funny shtick, and they just kind of went along with it. I honestly think what would have been cool is if each of them got into like a different Robotnik robot and were fighting right there in the arc. Like if Ivo got into like the mech thing from Sonic Adventure 2, and then Gerald got into any number of like versions of the Eggmobile from like other Sonic games. It can be like the thing with the ball, the wrecking ball, something kind of like, I just think if like they were battling it like that, and then they could have been talking shit the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like Jim Carrey.
Play a little bit of Dr. Robotnik's theme, bum 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 bum, like kind of underneath it slightly with like a little orchestral score.
Well, that's the thing. They even had his theme, the da na 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 from Sonic 06 a few times, and even his ringtone goes off. It's like, I'm the Eggman. That's what I am. I am. So they know their shit. They and that's the thing. Even like Sonic 2. There's things that they want to do, they just can't because it's out of the budget or producers or whatever. Like, apparently when they go to like Siberia in Sonic 2, it wasn't originally meant to be Siberia. It was meant to be an ice planet. In the bar they go to, they didn't say what characters, but they're going to that bar and there's going to be cameos of other Sonic characters there, and they get into a fight, not a dance off. So it's kind of like, shit. I'm just wondering what would it have been, you know what I mean? So, but
well, I think that's just the fighting of the producers, and I think I'll say this: each movie, I think they get a little bit closer to being more Sonic. By Sonic 4, I hope we get even farther to being into like full Sonic world.
Yeah. So, and that's just like knowing like the fact they go to they go to the ice cap zone, and that's a planet or it's ice world or something like that. And like, shit, that changes things so much. Like, well, just like you still get to the same goal at the end of the day, but it's just one of those things like, shit, we almost were off world for a minute. We were off world for almost a minute, but maybe the next one will be.
Yeah, so I think it is progressing that way, and it's one of those ones. I really enjoyed Sonic 3, but I felt like, yeah, it's just that one. I was almost kind of hoping it was going to go just maybe a little bit farther. I think just because of how much of a leap it is from 1 to 2, I almost thought that leap would be the same leap farther from 2 to 3. You know, and it does go forward. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I feel like it kind of, you know, it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't leap, but it sort of steps instead.
Mm-hmm. No, I can see that. Yeah.
But
it does go
yeah.
forward, but not as far as we would have liked, though. I get what you mean, though.
But yeah, so Sonic, my number 5. What are we on yours? 5 or 4?
4. And we're at the Heretic.
Oh, okay. This is the one you were telling me about right before, or you know, just a couple weeks ago. And I did kind of mean to go out of my way and check this one out because it did sound really good. And I do think that Hugh Grant I think he's at a great point in his career where he's getting all these roles where he chews scenery and just really shows off how good of a fucking actor he is.
Well, really, so what this movie's about is it's about 2 Mormon girls who are like, you know, missionaries, and they're stopping by Hugh Grant's house to tell him the good word of the book, you know. And he invites them in. And it's kind of this slow burn, like really the first, like, you know, you see these Mormon girls go through town and you see like, the thing is like, yeah, they're Mormons. Yeah, they're sheltered, but you can kind of, it's like, I feel like I kind of know these girls, you know what I mean? I feel like I've met, because even maybe not Mormons specifically, but there are those times where you meet those girls where like they're religious and they seem a little sheltered, and you're like, oh, you know, it's not that, but they're still nice and they're still good people, you know. There's
something off, but you can't put your finger on it, but it's there.
Well, no, there's just one of those girls, you know, there's something off. There's a little bit of something off, but they're still really nice and they're still smart. But then there's just that little thing of like, you know, there's just a little bit of that divide, and it kind of comes out just like a shelteredness. And sometimes you meet those girls like a few years later and they escaped, or they just got less religious. Like, yeah, whatever, da da da. You know what I mean? You meet them at a party,
they're wearing pants now and being like a rebel and.
Exactly. What are you doing out of the kitchen? No. But no, like, no. The thing is, they seem very real. They seem very weird. Like the things they're talking about, like it's like kind of a funny conversation. It's just going around, dragging the bikes around, stopping, you know, and you see they're kind of like ignored by a lot of people. So you kind of feel, and you see they're bullied by some girls too. So you feel a little bad for them. And they go by Hugh Grant's house, and Hugh Grant just basically chews scenery and steals the scene for a little bit. And they have this long conversation that's both interesting and both funny. And it starts to have darker, sinister undertones to it, where he invites them in and basically he's trying to say, no, I love the concept. He's asking them things about the book, this and that. And he slowly kind of starts to unravel and explain why religion is bullshit. It becomes kind of like the like 2014 like Reddit atheist, like, well, technically religion is bullshit because, you know. And the thing is like he's making good points and he's saying it nicely, but it's this slow buildup and things happen to get more sinister and more sinister. He's making comparisons to other things. And when I say like Hugh Grant just basically mansplains religion to these ladies for like 15 minutes. You're like, okay, well, it's actually really interesting, the conversation they're having, even the dialogue, the back and forth they're having. He's even using an example of kind of like, I'm going to use an example. You know Monopoly, right? Monopoly, before Monopoly, you know, there was actually somebody, because people get this fact wrong. They think Monopoly was something made to explain what's wrong with monopolies. That's not Monopoly. That's the game the person that the Monopoly copied from. And he pulls out the original board game and he says, this was made by a feminist at this time in this day. He got no credits, and the guy but did not have a copyright. And the guy who made Monopoly stole this and presented his own, changed a few things around. Now it's this. And now he's talking about, so kind of like Christianity, this and that, Mormonism, we get he says like, and he puts up like the Bob Ross version of Monopoly on top of it, you know? So it's like comparing that to Mormonism, basically. So it's just like,
That's so pretty funny.
You know, and then he goes on, like, you know, he talks about like, he puts on like Creep, or he puts on another song. He says like,
I thought you say he puts on Creed. He's like, hey, you guys are into this, right?
Can you take me higher?
I want to make him feel comfortable here.
So that's the thing, though. So this is also one of those movies where I don't want to say too much because it eventually, it becomes a horror film. It becomes like something darker and it twists and turns in ways you don't expect. But the thing is it's just this slow, like, it's kind of interesting watching the veil of civility slowly fall. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen right away. And it slowly falls. And he's even presenting himself as just like, because, at some point the door is locked. They can't leave. He's, you have to just go out through the back. And just like, through the back? Yeah, through the back. Like, we have one of these two doors right here. Either one, I just kind of like, what would he like? Just like, the door locks this time. I just have it auto locks. Can't do nothing about that. It's just like, that doesn't make any sense. You're like, well, it's what it is. I don't tell it's just like the slow. It's kind of like Tusk to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Just where there's a thing of like, shit's wrong, shit's off, but if you scream about it and make a thing, it's gonna escalate. So there's just kind of this thing of like,
go along with it.
Just go along with it, So, and then at some point in the movie, you're questioning. There's other aspects that come in, and you're questioning: is there something supernatural here, or is it all like smoke and mirrors? And it kind of makes you wonder that for a little while throughout the movie. And there's a couple of curveballs, and I really liked it. I mean, it's not like, I'm going to say the trailer makes it look like these two girls going through Hugh Grant's death maze in his house. And it's not that. There is a couple of like corridors and rooms, but like it's not like it's really like a few places within the house that they go to. It's not this crazy, like, elaborate death maze like the trailer made it out to be. It's a little more. It's a little bit more confined. It's a little bit more of a bottle film, but it's really good, and I recommend it.
Yeah, this one is out of all the movies I think you've talked about, this one's the one that sounds probably the most interesting that I didn't get to see. I definitely have to check this one out because it just sounds like it's just a good slow burn, huge creep factor, and I already know just how good Hugh Grant's been. And like, I mean, fuck, like The Gentleman, like Hugh Grant.
Oh, he fucking steals it.
Oh, dude, he does. And there was another Guy Ritchie one that came out kind of after that, but that he was in too, and he was he was once again fucking, So I'm kind of like he's now one of those actors where I'm like I get excited when he's in a movie. So
we don't really do this, but if I had to give like my favorite, we're doing like a countdown of movies. But if I had to give my favorite actor of the year, it goes to Hugh Grant.
Yeah, God, he's so good in it. But so yeah, continuing up the list, I'll go to my number 4, and on my number 4, I'm gonna go with Dennis Quaid's Reagan.
Oh, you saw that one? I didn't see that.
I did. Well, it's one of those movies that like it kind of got thrown under like it literally had like no press or anything like that. But I'll say biopics are always one of my favorite ones. And I always enjoy all the president ones. I like the Clinton movie. I like the W. I liked the Vice movie with Dick Cheney. That one was fucking hilarious. And Reagan's kind of like in that one too, where it's like it's got a mixed match of like you get the whole Reagan lifestyle from beginning to end. It's got a mixed match of drama thrown in there, comedy thrown in there. There's a part made me laugh so hard where like they're talking about like all like the Soviet guys passing away, and every single time it's like, oh, and this guy died, and it just cuts to a funeral. It's the exact same funeral. It does it 3 times like in a row. Just a different guy's picture is the only thing up on the thing, but it's the exact same scenes and so on. But yeah, it's just like one of those ones. It just goes from like, Reagan as a boy, and his pastor's fucking Hercules from the 90s TV show, Kevin Sorbo or whatever. And as it kind of goes up, it shows him in like, the mixed match of like, he's an actor, he got the Monkey movie, he becomes, part of like the Screen Actors Guild, the president of that, and kind of fixes a bunch of things in there, because he's the dude who got them all like healthcare and all that stuff. He's like the Jesse Ventura for, I guess, Screen Actors Guilds, where he actually gets them like benefits and shit. But, and then,
that was good.
Yeah, and then, of course, him becoming California governor and so on. But it works its way up nicely. It doesn't present anything in like a biased way. It's a very middle of the road kind of movie. But
does it say when he sold out a bunch of people to J. Edgar Hoover?
Well, it does have some of the communism scare and so on like that in there for like the 50s type stuff and whatnot, and just the dealing with that. Yeah, it does go. It's definitely like Reagan's like stance on fighting communism. It definitely has, that like is his big thing throughout the whole thing. But it's interesting because it's told through John Voight plays an old Soviet. And he's the guy who's pretty much narrating the whole movie. So, like, this dude, like, shows up.
I remember the first time I met Mr. Reagan, that type of shit.
Yeah, so pretty much what it is, it's kind of interesting because it's, like, literally from Soviet perspective. It's just like, so we've been watching this Reagan through his whole life. I'm John Voight. Come on in and have tea, young man. And so there's, like, this, like, reporter guy talking to John Voight. And so it gives it to you, like, the whole perspective's all through, like, Soviet eyes of them watching, like, which sounds kind of weird when you say it like that, but, like, it makes it feel like it's some kind of Russian-made movie where it's just like they're like here we go. But yeah, so John Voight's
makes like they're walking through the White House and there's like a picture of like Abraham Lincoln on the walls. The eyes go out. You see a pair of Soviet eyes looking through it, like it's fucking
his little hammer and sickle glasses. So it kind of explains that there and so on, and then yeah, it's just the Soviet version of him kind of coming all the way up and going through his life, and then getting to like Gorbachev and so on. It's funny, the guy who plays Gorbachev, he's like, okay, Gorbachev has that like birthmark or whatever the fuck it is on his head, but in this movie, it literally looks like some fucking like chocolate ice cream fell on the top of his head, dried out and stayed there. I just like one of those ones like that. Nobody tell him that, like, yeah, it's like, hi, Gorbachev, you know how much you love the chocolate, soft serve ice cream. He just goes under there fucking like Pauly Shore and Encino Man. No squeezing the juice.
Zangief's not there to stop him.
No, not at all. But yeah, no, I just thought it was just a good biopic, as I said, like if you like any of those other kind of presidential ones throughout the years, which it's weird. It's like I always feel like I always enjoy those. There's something about a biopic. It's kind of like, they could be about anything. It'd be about like sports and so on like that. And for some reason, like I don't care to watch sports, but then it's like you make a biopic about an athlete. It's like, oh, that's a pretty good movie. I'm down.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Give me a life story, sure. But yeah, and I thought Dennis Quaid fucking killed it. I always like Dennis Quaid. Fucking Jerry Lee Lewis and all that stuff. But yeah, Reagan, that's my number 4.
That's your number 4. All right. My number 3, this moves a little faster now. My number 3 is Furiosa.
Furiosa. Oh, I didn't realize. I was wondering if that was going to be on your list because it's like we've gone so far. I wonder if he has it on there.
Yeah, 3 is Furiosa for me. And like I said, like sometimes I feel like number 5 is like 5 up is like these are probably higher movies for me on my list. But at the same time, I feel like a few could be like, it's not so tight. You know what I mean? But yeah. I feel like I shared most of my opinions on Furiosa. Just really good. Really didn't like it as. I don't feel like I don't know why I need to kick it down, but I didn't like it as much as Fury Road.
Since it's up here on 3, let's yeah.
Just remind you, you didn't get to 1 like Fury Road did the year that came out, but 3 still pretty good. So nice work.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so going to my number 3, I'm gonna go with a movie. I'm gonna go with Snack Shack as my number 3.
I like that one. I saw that one too. That almost made my list.
That was the one that like that kind of popped up, and it was like, okay, this looks kind of interesting. I don't know. It just sounds like, it's early 90s sort of teen comedy, whatever. And I was like, I'm just going to give it a go. And I'm like, I like the premise right off the bat. It's like, okay, here's these 2 guys, early 90s, 2 best buds. And I liked how they were just kind of hustlers in a sense. Like that was all they kind of did as kids. They were just trying to make money off all kinds of stuff. Like what you do when you're a kid too. You're like, how can we make money? What kind of businesses can we start? What can we sell? What can we do? And in the process, these shows, they do a handful of things. Like they literally make some beer. They, sell it to college kids. They do a handful of other ones too. Kind of forgot what else they were, but whatever. Lo and behold,
it's kind of like Ed and Nettie. If it was like there's no like, if there's only 2 of them, really.
Yeah, that's actually exactly it. And then they eventually they find they're like, oh shit, the Snack Shack at like the local community pool or whatever. You can literally bid for it, and then you could run it for the summer. So they go down there. They bid like for some reason way higher than like anybody ever has, and they get it. And then they're like, shit, we're just going to open this up. We're going to sell fucking sodas. We're going to sell hot dogs, yada, 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 and make a bunch of money off this and so on. And at the same time, like they're both kind of like asshole kind of guys too, but like in a fun way, where they just talk shit and, all this kind of stuff that like, nowadays, if you told some little kid to like fuck off or something like that, that'd be the end of that career.
Well, it's also, there's this thing where they like to do where as they talk, like it happens more earlier in the movie, but as they talk and as they like just plan things out, they just like to like Bruce Lee like fight each other. They'll just like be pretending like just like sparring each other just out of nowhere, and sometimes they'll really mad, they'll just like kick one of them, like they'll like elbow one in the throat or kick one of the fucking balls or whatever. It's no big deal. They just kind of go back to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they just have this kind of rough
fucking animals. Yeah.
Yeah, they are both kind of wild and so on like that, and then it throws in a third kind of buddy in there who's this slightly older fella who just got back from the Gulf War or whatever. It's like, it makes him feel like he's older than he really is, but I think he's only supposed to be like 19 or 20 or something like that. Well, he could drink beer, I guess. So.
He's like 18. I took it he's 18 or 19, and he just drinks beer because he doesn't give a shit, And they're in some little like Midwest town, and so the parents are like, "Yeah, I just got back from war. Have a beer," kind of like that kind of thing. I took it as that.
Yeah, well, because like I pictured it being like one of those ones, like like when you're a freshman in high school and you meet like there's always a couple cool seniors you meet. I had a feeling that's who he was, and now that these guys are closer to seniors or juniors or whatever the fuck they are, this guy he just kind of got back from the Gulf War, which I guess he only went there for 2 years or something. I don't know what the Gulf War's not that long.
And he's friends with they're family friends also, something like that.
Yeah, so it's all kind of tied in there.
So it'd be more of a reason for like this guy to know this like kid who's 4 years or 5 years younger than him.
Yeah, so it kind of makes sense. So it kind of has like a slight older brother kind of feeling, but they are still like buddies and whatnot. And he's only friends with technically really one of them. The other guy, not as much. And in the process, there's kind of like there is a little bit of a friendship triangle kind of going on because of that. Because he's telling him, he's like, hey man, like fucking next year we're gonna go fucking hike Alaska or Canada or wherever the fuck we're going. He's like, dude, it's gonna be fucking awesome and everything like that. And then the other buddy, of course, is like, dude, we gotta fucking hustle the shit out of this fucking like snack shack and like make a bunch of money and so on like that. Become fucking entrepreneurs, And so there's a little bit of a feud there. And then they throw in another one. There's a girl that comes by who literally moves in next door for a while, for pretty much just the summer. And
a girl with all the patience in the world, I'll say.
Yeah, girl of all the patience in the world, fucking in a lot of attitude too, because it's 90s, And that kind of creates some kind of controversy too, because our one main character is a little bit of a dope sometimes when it comes to certain things, and the other guy, the other buddy is definitely more the entrepreneur, kind of in control, pretty kind of an asshole, but like in a fun way sort of thing. And just throughout the movie, it kind of starts off as like a comedy and everything like that. And then it starts to go kind of drama and even heavy drama, yet still retaining some funny and good heartfelt moments and so on in there. I just really enjoyed that whole experience in it. I felt like I could totally relate to that, like, being, in, school and whatnot like that and trying to like, hey, what are we going to do to like hustle in some money and so on like that. And even just like the working at the pool thing, because it almost reminds me like it had partially like that Pizza Boys. Like it really felt like a Pizza Boys issue. I think that's why it did kind of, and that's even how I sort of like, when I sent that movie to you, I'm like, dude, you got to check this one out. It kind of reminds me of like a spin-off like Pizza Boys episode or something like that. And it captured a lot of stuff in there. And as I said, towards the end, some shit happens and so on like that. But like, it's kind of like you go with it. You're like, yeah, that those things like that kind of happens and so on.
Yeah, it's also something to the effect of like, without trying to spoil too much, like when the big like third act, like oh fuck thing happens, it's kind of like it kind of like dropped the hints of it happening earlier. Like it's one of those things, it didn't draw a lot of attention to it, but they threw all the evidence out there. And you kind of think at the moment, look, the first few times I saw that, like, well, that's kind of a red flag, but the movie doesn't seem to be too concerned with it. So it is what it is. And then when what happens, you're like, oh fuck. No, the movie was going through it. They're kids, so they're not thinking about it. They're not really thinking about or so I thought that was just kind of a interesting hopeful way to come back on the tragedy of what happens. But then even the whole thing with them, because like it starts off as kind of like there's like the 90s whoa movie. It starts off as a whoa movie, and then when you get to the end, you're like, whoa, just kind of,
it's a whoa movie the whole way through, but the whoas change throughout it.
Yeah, it's like whoa to whoa,
man.
Yeah. Well, it was meant to sound more sad, but it sounded more like you got your mind blown. But it was meant to be
yeah.
it was meant to sound like whoa, kind of like that,
Yeah, pretty much. If whoa was like fuck.
Yeah, pretty much. And the thing is, like, the one friend, like, because it even plays on the fact of like, yeah, there's the one friend who's like the entrepreneur who's trying to lead things, and he's kind of an asshole, and he's trying to like guide things a certain way, and he's always trying to like control the situation, and he's funny, but then it also gets to the point, like in real life, after a while, that shit would get irritating, and that shit would really like drive a wedge, especially the way he goes about it. So it's one of those things where like it's kind of realistic in that way. And then even like the thing with the girl, because there's also a little bit of a love triangle with them and this girl that comes out of nowhere, and this girl, like I said, has all the fucking patience, and there's like 5 moments where I'm like, oh dude, you just fucked it up, and to the last minute you're like, you're still giving this guy a shot? Holy fucking shit, you're still giving this guy a fucking shot?
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, well, dude, summer's over.
Yeah. Dad's like, we're going to fucking Ramstein or whatever.
Yeah. Well, no, that's another thing though. Like, even the family kind of comes across as overbearing because they're just like the super Christian conservative household, and it's kind of overbearing. But there's a point where you kind of like, you do feel for the kid a little bit, because like you see like the parents are kind of like putting him down in front of, there's the friend of the family kid who they're friends with, and like they're kind of putting their son down in front of him, and kind of like, so it's just kind of like one day you gotta set straight, you gotta figure things out just like right in front of everybody. So it's like, no wonder this kid's fucking up and trying to look over any chance he can to try and like make money, this or that. You guys are fucking strangling this kid from doing anything. By the end, there's a little bit more of like something with him and his family, and they realize you're not entirely a fuck up after all. But at the same time though, there is like moments where it's like you kind of get why this kid's so rebellious. You know what I mean? It's that when you have those super Christian conservative parents, you're like, yep, you know what's gonna make you less rebellious? More Christian conservatism. You're like, okay, yeah. So it's just like, so it's one of those things like, you do feel for the kid to a certain extent, even though there's some points the kid's just really annoying. You're like, dude, this girl is fucking throwing herself at you, and she is fucking bad, dude. Just go for it. And you're like, okay, of course. Like,
okay.
She was making out with the other guy for a minute. Yeah. What the fuck's wrong with you? So.
Yeah. He does. It's like he messes up, but it's very believable mess up. You're like, you know what? I get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as a kid, you're gonna make all kinds of dumb mistakes, and sometimes things don't always go the way you want. And I feel like this movie kind of captures a lot of that pretty darn well. Well,
it's also he did, the other thing about it is, like, some of the mess ups that happen with it, like it's like it's like the other friend is over exaggerating how serious it is. Like, they've made out a few times and he grabbed her tit once or twice, but to him that seems like the fucking world. But to her, it's like, we fucked around a few times. What's the big deal? I would have done that with you too. Just like get on this shit now.
What are you doing? Fucking smoke show here, and you're just fucking ruining it, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Or then like there's the part where like she like they're like about to get caught by the cops or something, and make them both quiet. She like grabs one of the guys being loud, just grabs their dicks. Like, she jerked me off the other night. It's like, I didn't jerk him off. I fucking grabbed his dick so he'd shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's the only way we got him to be fucking quiet.
So it's like a lot of funny little like small moments like that. I think this is, even though I love Kevin Smith, I think this is if there is my favorite coming of age story this year was My Old Ass, but this is probably my second coming of age story this year.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those ones. I hate to sort of say it. This movie, it's like one of those ones. I have the 4:30 on here at the beginning, And this movie kind of is in a similar thing of the 431, but I hate to sort of say it, this one's the more dialed in one by far.
I felt that way. It felt a little bit more real, even though the 430 was intentionally trying to be like an 80s comedy and like with the overacting. This just felt a little more like raw, you know?
Yeah, no, this one did, but overall, this is that one that it sounds weird. Even though I like a lot of these other movies, this is the one that I almost would feel like is like the one I'd almost recommend the most out of like anything, because I just don't think that most people would come across this movie. It was, I think it was. If it was in cinemas, it was like barely in cinemas, and then like it kind of went straight to like streaming and so on. So it wasn't an easy one to come across. Like I felt like I fucking watched it on something weird. Like I think I had a free 6 months of MGM Plus, and I think that's where I watched it. Like so, yeah. Well, like it was literally, you know, like most things, it's like, well, you know, we'll give it to you for 99 cents or something like that. Like MGM Plus is like, hey, you want 6 months for free? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll take 6 months for free. You know,
and after that, maybe you'll pay for the service. No, I won't.
No.
Oh, okay, we'll be back. You know, we'll be here.
Yeah, we'll be here. Yeah, don't worry.
Want to watch Good, Bad, and the Ugly? Is it free? Well, for you, sure, it's free. Sure. Okay, yeah, watch Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah, right on.
Yeah, okay, I guess I don't have to get up and get my Blu-ray out. You know, but next we'll charge you $5.99 a month. I'll just get my Blu-ray out.
We'll put it off then. It's not a big deal. It's okay.
so yeah.
It's just it's the lion saying it's all meek and just can't like make eye contact.
We have the 007 collection. We know how much you like that. Yeah, I do have the 007 collection too. Oh. No, you do.
Everyone does, I guess. You know, it's good. It's fine. The line doesn't roar anymore. Just like,
no.
Yeah, you want MG? No, it's okay. All right, we get it.
No. Yeah. So I felt like I got my money's worth out of that free 6 month membership by watching Snack Shack.
Well, right on. I liked that movie, so I'm glad that made your list.
Yeah, as I said, that's one of those ones I even contemplated, because I put it at number 3, but I contemplated it being actually slightly higher too. But yeah, that's my number 3. What's your number 3?
Well, that was my number.
Or 2, I guess.
My 2, yeah. My number 2 is Tuesday, and this is have you heard of this movie?
No. The title sounds familiar, but I can't tell you anything more. I was thinking it was the Bob Dylan movie for a second. I'm on my way, so that's not the Bob Dylan movie.
No, it's not. I didn't have a chance to see the Bob Dylan movie. So it is I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Fantasy comedic drama with a dash of horror. So Mary Louise Dreyfus lives in England. She has a daughter, and her daughter is terminally ill. She's kind of lying to herself about it. Like to her, it's not as serious as it is she's making it out to be. To her, there's a way out, but she's kind of squandering her time with her daughter, and just trying to plow through it, and almost just lying to herself about, you know, that, oh, she's going to be okay, you know, doesn't want to talk about it, you know. One day, death comes for the girl, and death is a parrot. And right before the parrot, and basically we see a few times, because we see people dying, and we see this weird, creepy looking parrot land in front of them and just wave its claw. It's like its wing over, and they just die. And there's even a few moments where we see it happen a few times, and like you see the parrot's kind of like doesn't really want to do it, or in some ways it looks kind of cold, but in some ways it looks like it has sympathy. Like it sees, like it lands like on this old lady. It can also change size. It can be tiny or it can grow huge, you know. And it lands on this lady's couch, and this old lady, she's like looking at it, and she starts like just kind of on the verge of tears, like no, just spits at it like no, you know. And then like she knows what's there, and then the parrot, and like she spits at the parrot, and the parrot just does the thing, and then just lands on her, and it just like holds her for a minute, just like fuck, you know. So it's like a lot of like those kind of quiet moments like that. Anyway, so we get this just sense of who the parrot is. The parrot goes to the girl, and the parrot's about to do it, but the girl tells a joke, and it makes the parrot stop and laugh. And the parrot just decides to take a break for a minute, and it's the first time the parrot's had a conversation with anybody in like years. Like I can't remember the last time I had a conversation. And that's the girl and the parent knows, like, I'm gonna have to kill you, or you're gonna have to come with me eventually, but we could just talk for a minute. It's nice to talk to somebody, because the parent also has a really weird voice. It has this weird, deep, like, it almost sounds like something that can't really talk, but it's managing to make the right noises that sound like talking, if that makes sense. So kind of adds another layer to it. So, and there's even a part where she's pulling out a history book and she's like flipping through it, like points to like, like, I think he points to like Stalin, like, oh, he was a fucking prick, like, well, like, what about him? And like points to like Jesus. He's like, he was very sarcastic, actually, So just like there's like things like that, and at some point the girl, even though she's like this, like, nerdy little British girl in a wheelchair and a pixie cut and glasses, she loves hip hop, and she puts on hip hop. She's like, "Do you like music?" She's like, "This is my favorite song," and he's just like headbanging to it, So it's like, and it's not like kind of like '90s, like it's a fucking hip hop parody or nothing like that. But it's just
I know, because I was picturing there's that movie, what's it, Paulie or whatever, from fucking
it's not,
the late night.
It's not that. Like some of the death that comes across is actually, because you see some of the people that come across, you see people like stab wounds and all that. It kind of like, I don't want to say too much, but then basically it becomes like Julia Louis-Dreyfus try to barter with this thing of like, I just want to spend more time with my daughter, and then this thing be like, she has to die eventually, and it's just this from there. That's I don't really want to say a whole lot, because things take a couple of twists and turns you don't expect. But it's also interesting because since this bird is stopping to take a break for a minute, we see what happens to the world when there's no death to go around, and like bugs don't die. So there's like bugs everywhere, because and then
bugs
like,
just continuously fucking.
Yeah, and people, just a lot of bug fucking and a lot of other people not dying. You see people who should be dead just not dying and in pain. So it's actually no, they do a good job of not making it funny. Like, they don't show this part, but one lady comes running into the house, like, I think the fucking apocalypse is happening. Like, why? Like, there was a roadkill dog and its head was barking and crying at me. I'm like, fuck. They don't show that, so it's just like, so it's like,
yeah, so you could vision that, you know what I mean.
But they show similar things. They show similar things to that. So it's like, in the movie, as it goes on, becomes more drama oriented, more sad than it is funny. But it still has little jokes peppered throughout here and there. And there's goes a direction I really didn't expect it to go in. And I mean, I'm new to it, but being a dad, it became this thing that kind of hit me in a weird way of like the idea of like knowing your kid's in pain, but at the same time not wanting your kid to, not wanting to outlive your kid. So just like this, it was aside from that, I was still just it was just a really good movie, and I really recommend it. The girl's name is Tuesday. That's why it's called Tuesday.
Okay, that's why it's called Tuesday. Yeah, that's like almost probably the most interesting concept movie of all the ones we have on our list. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That definitely has a very obviously unique, way, and just the fact that there's birds in control of everything. It sounds like just that mixed match of being funny, dark, and very interesting all at the same time. It's
probably drama first and foremost, but the humor is like peppered throughout it. There's like too many like little moments of it for it not to be like part comedy,
Yeah. No, that one sounds really interesting. I'll have to take a look at that too. But let's see. Going up our list here, I'm at my number 2. So my number 2 is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
I like that one. That was fun.
Yeah. That's the one. It's like, I'll say this. I think Guy Ritchie's becoming kind of like the director that I look most forward to when he's got movies coming out, because it seems like in the last handful of years, he's always delivering something just about every year, sometimes 2 movies a year. And for the most part, they're always generally pretty darn fucking good movies. And I felt this one was like, no exception. It was just one of those ones, like, the story was cool. You got this old Winston Churchill document that just came out like 10 years ago that had all these secret black ops style missions in it. and the fact that like one is filled with like great action. It's got that Guy Ritchie kind of wit and charm humor in it. And you got these guys that are like, okay, there's pretty much all these U-boats out there, all these Nazi U-boats going around, blowing shit up, and so on like that. And we got a game plan to take to pretty much stop them. It's a weird one, like when you kind of explain, but like if we go get the boat that has all their air filters on it, that's what we gotta do. We gotta go steal the boat that has all their air filters, because then they won't be able to, breathe in a sense underwater and have nice fresh air.
Well, it was before England was actually part of the war, right? So they're kind of like a secret ops group before England was officially part of the war. Or they maybe not part of the war, but they're in like, or passing these waters would like break the Geneva Convention in some way or endanger like neutral ground or something like that. It was something to that effect.
Yeah, something that because I can't remember if England was in war. God, what year it takes place, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head.
It was either they were.
And it's weird. I literally just watched it again like a couple weeks ago, and I still can't tell you. I don't think it actually says what year it takes place for some reason in that movie.
It was one of two things. It was either like before they're officially in the war, or it was in neutral territory, and by attacking this area with like a big like Union Jack flag, that would immediately make this territory go with the Germans. So it was something kind of like that.
Yeah, I think it's something because they must have been in the war because they have the bombing raids. So obviously,
that's right.
Like, so they have that, but so it's this kind of cool thing that they take these group of like I think like 6 gentleman type figures, and they're all just a bunch of kind of wild men, and they're like, okay, so here's what you're gonna do. Like England can't know, nobody else can know. You're pretty much out there on your own. You're just gonna say you're a bunch of Swedish fishermen guys, out on like some gay voyage in a sense. Like that's just gonna happen. Just 6 men out here drinking wine, eating cheese, and going fishing,
Fishing and fucking. What about it?
Fishing and fucking. And you're going to go out there and, pretty much sneak on in and take out this ship by any means necessary. We'll have some kind of inside espionage too with a couple of these guys. And, they pretty much have to sail down from England all the way down to the west side of Africa area down there. And that's where they're storing this cargo ship that pretty much has all these air filters for the U-boats. And, just along the way, you get the cool espionage stuff. One thing I thought that's really fucking awesome is the fact that they have Ian Fleming, the dude who wrote 007. He's because he worked for the Naval Intelligence and that time period. So it's cool that he's actually in there as a character, fucking talking to Carrie Elways and so on like that, and the fact that also it says this at the end, but like they say that pretty much Superman fucking Henry Cavill. So the guy that Henry Cavill plays in this movie is the one that Ian Fleming sort of based 007 off of, which I think is pretty badass.
That's cool. And then there's also like, it's because you brought up Superman. There's the giant like Swedish dude, like that that dude with the bow and arrow. And
the little glasses and everything like that.
Who I think he's also in Reacher. I think he's in the Reacher show. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think he's I think that's funny. Too. That almost makes me want to watch that Reacher show because of how much I like that guy in this movie.
The thing is, like a lot of people, I don't mean to derail it too much, but a lot of people want to cast that guy for the next Batman and just dye his hair black. And like, I'm all for that. But another part of me is like, you're gonna know who fucking Bruce Wayne is, like right off the get go. Just like we know Bruce, we know who you are. Like, well, how do you know? Well, every time Batman gets into his Batmobile, like the whole thing just goes to the fucking floor and drives and sparks come out. Every time Bruce Wayne gets into the back of his Rolls Royce, same thing fucking happens. Okay. Every time.
I would love if that's how like fucking like if you had like a Carrie Kelly or something like that, that's how she figures it out.
It's just the world knows. The world knows. Like you're the only one in like size like only 2 people have like this custom size suit. Like Batman has there's Bruce Wayne wears Armani, and then there's the Batman one. Okay, only 2 sizes exist of that thing. Okay, we can narrow down who it is, and then or like every time you walk to like one end of Wayne Tower, it just kind of tilts Yeah. Same thing happens with Batman every time he walks over and like meets up with Jim Gordon somewhere. So we've narrowed this down. Like that's the only thing. He's such a big motherfucker. Who else could it be?
He is so totally, but he really is like in the movie. He fucking steals the show. He's got all the funny fucking like lines in there, and then like just how violent and brutal he is and whatnot. Because this movie kind of it's based on real events, but it has like that grindhouse almost Inglourious. Like
how much of it really? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is where they just take it and probably just crank it up to 11. These ones go to 11, that kind of thing. But yeah, just
girl,
the act.
What's the girl? What else she been in? She's familiar. I think I've seen her before.
I know I've seen her stuff.
She had kind of like a Bond girl kind of thing going on too.
Yeah, she definitely kind of has that, and they send her
thing. Yeah,
the femme fatale undercover and whatnot there, and of course then you also have your there's the guy who pretty much plays the one like evil Nazi guy who's pretty much there to chew scenery as well too.
Who's just there to sneer at the camera. Like there's like this beautiful girl dressed like Cleopatra throwing herself at him. He's like, if we must. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Most people
can't we just do a Nazi party instead? And he's so disappointed to be dressed up as fucking Julius Caesar.
Dresses are Roman. Like I also like how like the like Italians and the Nazis there were just kind of like these motherfuckers. Like they're just kind of like, we're just here at a convenience. Like at the party, they're just kind of like, fuck you, yeah, fuck you too.
And there's also the Spanish there too, and so there's like three-way like they all fucking kind of like dislike each other. It's always like, oh fucking the Spanish can't keep their fucking generator going. Oh the Italians are fucking up over there. Oh the fucking Germans, it's like back and forth.
Germaning about, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's just
and shit.
Yeah, so they just got this kind of like three-way power struggle kind of going down here, though they are still all kind of working together. And then of course, they go on the mission. They first have to do a rescue mission to get one guy out, which is pretty badass, where they just kind of like fucking Metal Gear Solid their way into this place and blow everything down. And then once they get him going, they go on there. And of course, nothing goes as planned, but they still make it fucking work no matter what. And just the way they go about, just carnage is unleashed. People die left and right. You got tons of violence and tons of action. And yet it's still like it just still has that British like like everything's like dashing and you're having a fucking good time. And it's in a weird way it's a very patriotic movie, but just for like British sake. You know what I mean? It's like literally like you're watching like Olympus Has Fallen, but instead this is like the the British version of it.
This movie could have made my list. I like this one. It just I actually kind of forgot about it for a minute. But yeah, no, I like
because it came out pretty early. I think it was like a March or April release or something like that.
Yeah. No, this one was good. I liked it, and yeah, I just remember them all kicking ass. I just remember the giant motherfucker with the bow and arrow, just like killing people left and right. Or you see the part at the beginning when they're just like, we're just having a nice day on a boat, having a picnic on a boat. Like, well, you see, we are Nazis. I mean, you do not trust picnics or whatever. And, all right,
and Swedish picnics at that.
Exactly.
The dreaded Swedish picnic of six men just laying about on their boat.
Yeah, and they just like, all right, let's murder these motherfuckers at the beginning. So yeah, that was good. I remember the opening.
Yeah, no, as I said, it just felt like it just gave me all the Inglourious Bastards vibes. I mean, I just that's kind of like what Guy Ritchie does best is he takes a Tarantino thing and gives it a British spin, but that's not a bad thing. I do not think that's a bad thing at all.
In hindsight, I don't know. I gotta watch Inglourious Bastards again. I think Inglourious Bastards has better moments, but as an overall package, I think this might move a little snappier, a little bit more to like what we want. You know what I mean? As opposed, if Inglourious Bastards wasn't called Inglourious Bastards, it was called something else, and Inglourious Bastards just part of it, that'd be fine. The only thing is it's called Inglourious Bastards, so you assume it's going to be all about them. So, and they're just like 1/4 of that movie. So I think that if it was called like Once Upon a Time in Nazi occupied France or something, it'd be perfect. But like long title. But At the same time, though, this movie, though, I remember it being really good. I watched it, and it was just, yeah, a good time.
Yeah, no. As I said, it kind of just delivers the whole way through, and even just like my second watching of it, that's why it kind of, I wasn't too sure where it's gonna be on my list, and then when I rewatched it, I'm like, you know what, I like that one quite a bit. Like, there's not really a lull in it. It's good from beginning, the end, and it's just got cool stuff. And I bought the book. I remember because when I was watching theaters, like, there's a fucking book, so I just got that on Audible right afterwards. I'm like, yes, I'd like to know more, So yeah, no, that one right there, that's my number 2.
All right, you're number 2. So I guess that leaves me down to my number 1. So this will go a little quicker. Just say the reason why it's my number 1 is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And a lot of people might be blasphemy. What's that doing at number 3? Or number 1? What's that doing at number 1? And I get it because I'm looking at my list. There are movies that were made. There are movies that were made better than this. Like even like Monkey Man was a better made movie. Heretic's a better made movie. Tuesday is a little more minimalistic, but still very eloquent in certain ways. So I get it. But at the exact same time, I guess I'm just thinking about a movie I went to that, like, you've said this before. It's usually your number 1 isn't like, it's just a movie that just, what made you the most happy that year? Mm-hmm. And in all honesty, if I'm being 100% honest, is this the ideal Sonic movie? My number 1 ideal Sonic movie? No. I'm not even sure if I like it as much as Sonic 2. And thinking back on Sonic 2, I'm not sure if I said this on the podcast. I know I said it to you, but when we did our countdown for Sonic 2, that was a little lower on my list. It was like 6 or 7. In hindsight, that probably could have been higher. That probably could have been like 4 or 5. And the way movies have been coming out this year, this maybe in a previous year, this would have been like 4 or 5 for me. That said, regardless of that, this movie, I think when it does something better than Sonic 2, it does really better. Like, I think like the emotion is more there. The action is better. I think Jim Carrey, I think that maybe he's yucking it up a little too much near the end. I think what should have been like a cool fight between two Robotniks comes in a little bit more of just Jim Carrey improvising, which is still funny, but just maybe not timed just right, And regardless, though, everything else about it, like, I think some things they actually improve on the Shadow and Maria relationship, because sometimes Maria is just this like this godly, like, little angel that can be just like, Shadow, everything's magic, everything's good, Shadow, and this, she's a kid. She's a kid. You believe her, And so I think they just improved upon that relationship. I think that they found a better balance between the trio, between Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. If you ask me, do I wish Rouge was in it? Yes. Do I wish Amy was in it? Yes. It would be cool if, like, they surprised me with another character. Yeah. But at the exact same time, I do wish they didn't spend so much time in London for a minute. At the same time, though, this movie does move. There's never a dull moment. It was fast. It was, no pun intended, but it was fast. It kept moving. It was funny when it wanted to be most of the time. The action was always good. They improved on a lot of things. Like, you can see they are listening to the criticisms of fans and whatnot, and they're taking those to heart. And at the same time, they're still following what seems like a vision. And even, like, going as far as, like, oh my God, they're playing Live and Learn. They're playing fucking Live and Learn, Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, am I saying this is a big time Sonic fan? Yeah, I'm saying as a big time Sonic fan, but at the exact same time, I can't deny that I had a lot of fun with the movie. And it, like, if I like Sonic 2 more, it's probably because it's representing more of, like, my favorite era of Sonic in the video games. At the exact same time, though, I can't deny that they did an amazing job with Shadow. The pacing was great, the action was great, and Sonic actually had some good character development in this too. So yeah, that's why this is my number 1.
Well, and that makes sense, because really, as I always think that, like, in a sense, what a lot of times number one movies are is like, what's the movie that has, in a sense, the most fun factor, rewatchability? Because I hate to sort of say it, those two things, to me, is generally what can outweigh many of other things in a film, or video game, or doesn't matter what it is. Just like if I have a really good time with it and I can watch it over and over, it might not be maybe the best made something, but that factor right there is, I think, what makes it the top choice. And I totally agree with that with Sonic, because it is really fucking good. Probably realistically, out of all the ones on my list, I would say that's probably the most rewatchable, if anything, for sure. You know what I mean? It's definitely one of those ones I know for a fact I'll go out of my way to buy it on, Blu-ray when it comes out. I mean, also just so you can't have a collection incomplete. You know what I mean? But, got to get that. But, it is still that one that the fun factor's high, and I look forward to seeing where it goes next. The good thing is since they haven't, they didn't, in all three of them, it's never like they fucking dropped it anywhere. It all fucking kept going.
They dropped it on Knuckles, but then that's the limitations of a TV show. So hopefully that one, hopefully if they do a second season of Knuckles or give Shadow a show or something, hopefully they learn their mistakes from that,
Yeah, and I'm just saying, that's not a movie, I guess, but I'm just saying
it's not a movie, movies. But yeah, 3 movies they've kind of kept it, yeah.
Yeah, so Sonic the Hedgehog's your number one. Well, that leaves me with just my number one left. And the number one that I'm going to go with is I'm doing Lisa Frankenstein as my number one.
Lisa, that sounds familiar. Lisa Frankenstein.
So this one came out literally in January of 2024, so it's very early. And it's directed by Zelda Williams, Robin Williams' daughter. And it's written by Diablo Cody. And what I really enjoyed about this movie is it's kind of like a girl version of Encino Man, if that makes any sense.
How'd this one get by me?
Yeah, it kind of came and went. I saw it in the cinemas when it came out and then got it later on. And so what it is there's kind of it's a movie. It takes place in '89, so it's got kind of like the 4:30 movie. It's got the retro '80 feel to it, but I think it does it. I hate to sort of say it does it better than Kevin Smith's one. And this one's probably obviously got a little bit more budget to it, but it pretty much what it is. You kind of got like a partial kind of goth girl or whatever, kind of moved it. Her mother was murdered brutally in the house. And now she's like living with like her stepmother, and her dad's just kind of calm and like, well, whatever, things happen. I guess you just kind of do it. Like that's part of his comedy charm. And so he's living there, but she just kind of like, kind of has that like, I don't really fit in. I like to hang out in the graveyard, kind of do these kind of things. And there's this lightning storm that happens at some point. And it hits this one grave that she always likes to hang out with and sort of just, she feels comfortable there. And it brings this guy to life. The guy comes into her house, literally kind of just reminds me like Encino Man. And then she's like, oh shit, I got this guy living in my, this, in a sense, zombie man living in my house, or Frankenstein kind of creature. And over time, she sort of puts him back together for the fact he's missing sort of pieces and limbs and so on like that. And what happens is, death kind of occurs over time because there's just some kind of jerk characters and so on, and they pretty much just accidentally kill one of them, and then from that point on it's like, well shit, we killed one person, I guess we can kill other people. And then they'll take like the body parts from them, and then she sews it first on like an ear, and then he can finally hear. Then she sews on a hand, and then he's able to and each time he puts on a new body part or whatever, he becomes more and more human like as it goes on from being a creature.
And you joke about taking someone's dick.
They literally do.
I figured. Okay.
He literally comes in with a fucking axe at one point, chops the guy's fucking dick off, and then sews it on because he's missing that part.
Or you just get him like hunched over, like doing it.
It's weird because the movie's a PG-13 movie, but it feels very rated R. Yeah, it's really weird because it has a lot of R-rated elements in it. It's one of those ones like I'm surprised it slides by, but no, because there is a lot of death and murder in it, and so it's not. in a sense, if it was a rated R movie, you would be like, oh, it's a little bit tame for that. But for when you hear it's a PG-13, you're like, oh, that's a little bit intense for a PG-13. But but it's kind of funny throughout. And I think just the characters, the way that they're all put together and so on. Like, she has like a stepsister in it who, you know, generally if it was any other movie, it's like, here's the good-looking stepsister and everything like that. You think she's going to be a total cunt and all that kind of stuff like that. And it's like, no, she's actually like the most appreciative and supportive person ever. She's like in a sense, like the squad cheerleader later, whatever. But she's like, my sister's the greatest person ever. I don't want anybody to ever talk bad about her. I only want the best for her. And it's like, they're only stepsisters for like 6 months, but it's weird that they have like this real connection and so on like that. But I just like the way
expectations that way.
Yeah, it breaks those up and everything like that. But just throughout it, it's just got a lot of good comedy in it. And then it's just got a cool storyline. And even like the funny stuff too is like the stepsister, she won like a Miss Hawaiian Tropic Award, so they gave her this like tanning bed. Well, the tanning beds, it malfunctions, so it like electrocutes. So that's where she uses like as her like you know Dr. Frankenstein like chamber, like when she puts all the new parts on him.
Oh, yeah. I have to check this movie out. I somehow I heard the name, but I did not know about the movie, so I have to check this one out.
Yeah, it's just a fun kind of. It's shot well, looks cool, very artistic. It's got a lot of odes to like a lot of older movies and so on in it, and yeah, there's just a lot of neat stuff in it. And at the end of the day, it's the one that like it's just really fun. That's what I liked about it. And as I said, it gives me that Encino Man kind of vibes. You know what I mean? But with a little bit of dark humor and so on.
Horror and Encino Man sounds like a good combination.
Yeah, you know. So and then it's got the good, like it does like an 80s movie where it feels really right. It doesn't feel like it's out of place or anything like that, or like they're trying too hard. It's like, no, it feels like a very believable one. Even speaking of, I know it's a little bit different but kind of Encino Man. It's got the chick from Son-in-Law. She plays the stepmother in it. Oh, so
fitting.
so it does have more Pauly Shore. It almost, yeah. If it had Pauly Shore in it, that'd be the only thing to top it off more. But you know. Yeah, this movie, I just thought it was fantastic, and I kind of came to the conclusion, I'm like, you know what, I think that's the movie. It's funny, it's the first movie I probably saw of the year, but I'm like, I think that's the one I almost enjoyed the most, and just kind of surprised me, and just everything about it. I thought the characters are good, the twists in it are neat, and, you know, just, it's kind of funny, and just interesting the whole way through, and then also well put together. I'm glad to see that, you know, Zelda Williams is making movies, and I look forward to seeing what else she does.
Yeah. Well, right on. I'll have to check this out. I didn't know that I heard this movie's name, but I didn't know she directed it. And knowing, oh, it's her and Diablo Cody. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. So yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, that's our list for the year.
That's it. That's our list. So yeah, here's a good probably 18 movies to go check out if you have yet to see them and whatnot. And if you want, you could even share whatever you think your top 10 list is. Put those in the comments and whatnot, and what ones are different, what ones we might have missed, and so on like that. I know there's always films that will come by 6 years from now that you run across. You're like, how the hell did it? It'd be like Hell or High Water. That's the one I always think about. Like, that was that movie. It's like, fucking missed that one, and I'm like, that would have been at least top 3.
Hell or High Water, Bad Boys 3.
That one was on my list, so I mean, it was there.
Well, that got by me. I'm just thinking about movies I've missed, though. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's always that. But yeah, let us know whatever ones you kind of enjoyed throughout the 2024 year and whatnot. And we'll look forward to what we see in 2025. And I'm just always hoping that there's going to be more and more movies. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that there's still always good films, but they're just becoming like few and farther between for sure. You know, so I hope the theaters last out as long as possible. I know they won't be there forever, but I'm going to enjoy it for every moment it's still there. And,
we'll have a packed movie. We'll have a bunch of packed movies this year, assuming they're all good.
Yeah, there is some heavy hitters coming out this year, so that will be kind of cool. But yeah, till then, we'll put there's always the Old Man Orange link tree that's got all our videos, comic books, old podcasts, and all that fun stuff in there. But till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.